What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Salt and Pauper Saturday video. Today is the return of Josh, aka Mayo, on the internet. We are going to be going through the new Wilds of Eldraine spoiler and talking about some of the new cards coming to Pauper. Josh, what's up, man?
Doing great. It's nice to be outside again. It's definitely cooped up for a long time, but I'm ready to get into this.
Glad to have you back. You excited about Wilds of Eldraine? You've been watching the spoiler season. It's been
Yes, I
pretty
have.
exciting.
There are quite a few spicy cards that I think have a fighting chance to make it in. Not like the usual, oh, there's no cards in this color. I think every card or every color has at least one.
Well, that's exciting. I have not read all the cards yet. This is going to be a pretty much a live reaction. So we're going to go through every single new Pauper card. We're actually going to be ranking them on a tier list today. First time trying this for the Pauper set review, but I did want to give you guys a comprehensive review. And then maybe after this video, we're going to be dropping our discussion of the actual best cards and the impacts we expect from them. So stay tuned for that coming right after this video goes live. But if you are enjoying the Pauper content, guys, before we get into it, make sure you hit the like button and don't forget to check to make sure you're subscribed to the channel. It really does help, and we're closing in on 800 quick, but we're gonna make it happen. Let's jump into it, guys. Let's roll the intro and hop into this list. Okay, guys, so to start off our Wilds of Eldraine set review, we're going to start on white here. The first card is Archon's Glory, a 1 white mana instant with Bargain. Bargain is a new keyword from Wilds of Eldraine. It says, you may sacrifice an artifact, enchantment, or token as you cast this spell, so sort of like Kicker. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If it was bargained, that creature gains flying and lifelink until end of turn as well. I'll be honest, I'm not sure white can use an effect like this all that well. I mean, we've had several types of pump and buff spells coming from white in the last couple of sets. They all seem to be pretty much limited playable only. So I would be inclined to rate this as draft chaff, but what do you think? I think this is probably going to be pretty good and limited, though.
That's right where I put it. I mean, the lifelink makes the racing situations, in White's favor. So I don't see it going anywhere else.
Yeah, same. Okay, so next up is Armory Mice. This is a 3/1 for 2 white and a colorless. It has Celebration, another new keyword from Wilds of Eldraine. It gets +2 as long as you have 2 or more non-land permanents that entered the battlefield under your control this turn. So if you played a couple of permanents, as long as they were non-lands, this card becomes a 3/3. I'll be honest, I don't even know if this is limited playable. Like, I might play it as a 27th card, but I'm pretty sure this is trash. I mean, it's reasonable, but a 3/1 against a set that seems like it's going to make a lot of rat tokens, and although they can't block, they're going to be attacking a lot. This just seems like it's going to trade for a rat token more often than I want it to. And I'm not hugely a fan of, like, Blade of the Sixth Pride type power toughness lines anyway these days. Pinging for 1 damage is really common, and 3/1s just don't often get there.
Mm-hmm.
What do you
Yeah,
think?
I dislike how you can't really turn it on easily at instant speed.
Yeah.
But this seems like a really good aggressive card as long as you can keep triggering that, like maybe a
Sure.
white-red deck. Outside of that, I don't really even want to play this in draft.
Yeah, it seems like trash.
Yeah.
Card number 3 from white is Besotted Knight. This is a 4 mana 3/3 human knight, 3 and a white. It also has Adventure, a returning mechanic from Throne of Eldraine, which is really exciting because I loved adventure cards. This one says Betrothed the Beast, 1 white. It's a sorcery. Creates a royal roll token attached to target creature. Now, rolls are a new enchantment type from Wilds of Eldraine. They are pseudo-legendary aura enchantments. They can be attached to your creatures or your opponent's creatures, depending on the type of card that plays them. And some of them have good effects, some of them have bad effects. We'll kind of go over them as we get there. But this one is the Royal Roll, and it gives the enchanted creature +1/+1 and has Ward 1. So for 1 mana, you give +1/+1 and Ward 1 to a creature permanently. That's pretty good. Looking at cards like Unexpected Fangs, giving 1/1 counters, and like Lifelink, that could very closely be associated to a roll, right? 1/1 and then Lifelink could be very easily equated to a roll. And this is for 1 white at sorcery speed. That's pretty cheap. And then if you play it as a creature, it is a vanilla 3/3. For the roll by itself, I feel like it might have cube potential. But I don't know how many roll cards we're going to get. I don't know how playable they all going to be. 1 mana for a roll token feels pretty good. 4 mana for a 3/3 feels pretty bad. But I am a huge fan of adventure cards, so I would be inclined to like conservatively put this card at draft chaff, but if you're feeling optimistic, I mean, I'm down to label this as like a potential cube card. Rolls and adventures in general seem pretty powerful.
Yeah, the adventures themselves, especially ones that cost 1, regardless if it's sorcery or instant, I think that that's enough to at least try it. Just consider it for sure. I think it would fit better in your cube than it would in draft chaff because just of the average creature size. And I'm not sure how well this would be in the current format or draft format.
Yeah, I'm down to talk about this when it comes to the cube update. So let's go ahead and put this as a cube card. Moving right along, we have Break the Spell. This is a 1 mana white instant, says destroy target enchantment. If a permanent you controlled or a token was destroyed this way, draw a card. As a 1 white mana destroy target enchantment, the card seems fine. The if a token or permanent you controlled was destroyed, draw a card. I know that this is supposed to combo with like the pseudo omens in this set. For those who aren't aware, we'll get them as we get them, but there are a set of enchantments, a cycle, one of each color, that want to die for additional value in this set, and this is kind of geared towards destroying those or your opponents at an inopportune moment if you need to. I don't think this card is playable in Pauper. 1 mana to destroy target enchantment seems very narrow when we have things like destroy all global and local enchantments, or what is it?
Remove enchantment.
Yeah, or like cleansing beam, or those kind of things that just destroy like enchantments en masse. This seems far not playable enough. And reviewing the enchantments that this is likely to be targeting, destroying your opponent's enchantment seems actively bad for you. This can target your own rolls, which is nice since you can only have 1 roll on a creature at a given time. If you're planning on putting a different roll on that creature, you can eat it for 1 white before you put the new roll on and draw a card. But for a whole card slot, just to destroy your own enchantment to draw a card, this seems pretty bad. I'm pretty inclined to call this trash.
Yeah, no, we've had Demystify for ages. No one's ever played it, so this isn't making it anywhere.
All right. Next up is Charmed Clothier. Clothier? I don't know how to pronounce that word.
Clothier.
5
like
mana Fairy Advisor. It's 4 and a white. Yikes, 5 mana. But it is a fairy. It has flying. It's a 3/3. So okay, it's on par. It's on par for value with a 5 mana card. Enters the battlefield, create a royal roll token attached to another creature you control. Once again, royal is 1/1 and has ward 1. It's a 3/3 flyer. This is at very least draft playable. I don't think it's a cube card. It's definitely not making the cut in Pauper. So it's either trash or draft chaff. But I think this is better than trash. I think you're going to play this in limited. So I'm inclined to call this draft.
Yeah, playing this in limited for sure. But the problem with a 5 mana effect, ward 1 means nothing at that point in time in the game. So
yeah. All right. Next up is Cooped Up. Wow, the pestilence pestilence, the pacifism power creep is real. The last couple sets, we've continually gotten improvements on the flag, post common of pacifism. This is a 1 white and a colorless aura enchantment enchant creature. It can't attack or block. And then 3 mana as an activated ability, exile enchanted creature. This is what everyone always wanted Cage of Hands to be. I think this card is at very least cube playable, so I'm inclined to call it a cube card.
You know, I was gonna make a joke about this being a combo with Break the Spell, but I'm thinking about this, and anything that flickers this card could be insane.
Yeah, because you don't have to sacrifice it as part of the cost for the effect. So you can pay 3, flicker it, put it on something else, and then the exile resolves.
Yes.
Oh wait, no, it doesn't.
It does.
It's exile enchanted creature. The creature is no longer enchanted when the ability resolves.
No, it's exile this creature. The creature doesn't need to be enchanted at that point, I don't believe.
Are we sure? I think that might be something to look up a rules interaction on, because the way that it's worded makes me think that it might check on resolution whether or not it's enchanted.
Creature.
It doesn't say target enchanted creature. It doesn't even say target. It just says exile enchanted creature. But I'm wondering if you flicker this while the ability is on the stack, whether or not it will resolve to exile the creature. At first read, that's what I think it does, but I would want to double check before I make a bold claim about it.
That's it. Bold claim right here, folks, from me. Chooped up. Insane.
Yeah, I would definitely call this cube card. I don't think this is going to get played in Pauper, because exiling an enchantment, I mean, what can do that? Like Blur? That's like it, right?
Blur.
Yeah, isn't that the ghostly flicker but for creatures or enchantments?
Oh god, Flicker of Fate, I think.
I feel like there's 2 cards. There's one that can flicker 2 things, and then there's one that can flicker 1 thing but draw a card. And both of those cards can flicker enchantments, I believe.
Definitely the one that flickers 2 things is what you'd want here for that.
I think that's Ghostly Flicker. Can't Ghostly Flicker target enchantments? It's like creature. Is it creature enchantment land, or is it creature? I think it's creature artifact land.
Artifacts, creatures, or lands.
Yeah, so this has got to be
the one from Avacyn, or not Avacyn?
Don't know.
Nope.
I think this is probably a cube card. It's definitely better than some of the other enchantment removal in the cube, but I just don't think a pacifism is ever going to be good enough in constructed Pauper.
Yeah, I just think that if there was a way to flicker this, that would make it insane, because when it comes back in, it also doesn't target.
It's still at least 5 mana to do that, though, right? Like, it's 3 mana to trigger the exile, and then probably
but you don't always need it right then. Like, you'll need the 2 mana right away for sure to put it on something.
Do you want to call this, pull a real bold claim and say has potential here? Because I'm down for that if we want to really stake our reputation on a pacifism variant.
Tell you what, I'll stake my reputation on it. You can go and hold on to yours if you want. Here, this is my mouse. I'm clicking and dragging it up there right now. That's it. That was mine.
Has potential. You heard it here first. All right, moving swiftly along. Next up is Frostbridge Guard. This is a 2/2 elemental soldier for 2. This has 3 mana, tap target creature. If this was a 2/2 for 2 that had 1 mana, tap target creature, I think it'd be really good. As it stands, 3 mana is far too much for cube. But this is probably draft playable. I mean, tappers are always good in limited.
Yeah, this card for me has the Grizzlebrand problem. You know, it's like 7/7/7 everywhere, but 8 to cast him.
Yeah.
So this card, just for the flavor's sake and for my
2/2/3.
2 to tap target creature. That's what it would need to be.
Sure.
But yeah,
draft playable it is. Next up is Hopeful Vigil. This is the first one of the enchantment cycle that I was discussing earlier that kind of wants to die. This is a 2 mana white enchantment. For white and a colorless, you get into the battlefield, create a 2/2 night creature with vigilance, and then when it is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you scry 2, and it has a 3 mana ability to sacrifice it. So this is very similar to the Omens from like Theros Beyond Death. No, Original Theros? Original Theros, I think. But instead of having the scry 2 as part of the sacrifice ability, it just says when it goes to the graveyard, you get to scry the 2. So if you sacrifice this to, say, a bargain, you get to scry 2, which is really good. So 2 mana for a 2/2 vigilance is like on par. And then if you sacrifice it, you get to scry 2. This seems very good in limited. I don't think it's good anywhere else, though.
Yeah, I want to say that it's good with a certain 2 mana creature that exists in Pauper, but
Yep.
there's another enchantment even later on that I think is even better with it.
Yeah, I think the
So I'm
black
not-
one is significantly
yeah,
better than this one. Although
so
I
I'm gonna
will
hold
say
off on that.
with Barbed Batterskull being played like just straight up to make 2/2 tokens. Now, granted, that was an artifact, so Glinthawk could bounce it too, but this making a 2/2 with vigilance for 2 mana and being Skyfisherable might mean this card is good enough to see play. I mean, I might even say this card has potential. I think if you can play this with like Core Skyfisher and bounce it to scry 2 to sculpt your next draw, replay it to keep getting tokens. I mean, if Barbed Batterfist is playable, this card's almost certainly playable, right?
Yeah, I think that I gotta take a look to see how many other cards can bounce enchantments that are creatures, that are repeatable. But I think that this is actually it's on my radar.
All right, well, I'm gonna throw this in has potential. I mean, we're gonna go crazy here today. But let's keep it moving. We got Kellen's Lightblades up next. This is a 2 mana instant for white and colorless. You get Bargain, and it deals 3 damage, target attacking or blocking creature. If it was Bargain, destroy that creature instead. This card is limited playable only, and yeah, not much to say about it.
No arguments here, folks.
Yeah, okay. Next up is Moment of Valor. 3 mana instant for 2 and a white. You get untapped target creature. It gets 1/0 and gains indestructible until end of turn, or destroy target creature with power 4 or greater.
Don't we have a 2 mana version of this?
I gotta say, Destroy Evil seems so much better. Destroy Evil seems significantly better. It can also destroy enchantments, and this card can't. I mean, Destroy Evil seems way better than this. Yeah. I'm inclined to just throw this under the trash bus. I don't even think this is going to be good in limited. Although indestructible is a powerful keyword, but for 3 mana, I don't know. I'm not happy to play this card.
I think that untap has got to be pretty spicy on it.
Sure.
And killing something,
Sure.
it's probably draft shaft here.
All
Like,
right,
this is
draft
probably
shaft.
white.
Sure. This is definitely a gotcha from white. Sure. Let's see. Next is Plunge into Winter, which is a 2 mana instant for a white and a colorless. You get tap up to 1 target creature, scry 1, then draw a card. So you can play it with no creatures on board, just to scry and draw in white, which is wildly close to like opt for white, which is very off-brand for white, because white has been hurting for good draw for a very long time, and we're starting to see scry and draw attacked onto white cards a lot lately, and I'm here for it. But unfortunately, 2 mana means this card is at best draft chaff, and I think more realistically, it's in the trash bin. If it put a stun counter on it, we could talk.
I mean, this is just better pressure point, right?
Sure.
And I don't want to compare the two settings, but pressure point was pretty spicy both times.
Yeah, I think that it needs to tap more than 1 creature, or it needs to put a stun counter on something.
A single stun would be nice.
Yes, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So what are we thinking? Trash? I'm calling this trash.
Yeah, the trash is fine. There's better removal spells for white.
Definitely. Protective Parents is next in the list. 3 mana, 3/2 human peasant. When it dies, create a young hero role attached to target creature. Now, young hero is another one of these role auras, and this one says whenever this creature attacks, if its toughness is 3 or less, you put a 1/1 counter on it. I actually think this is one of the more powerful roles. It grows pretty significantly if you put it on the right creature. There are several creatures in both Pauper and this set in general that are going to get, 2, sometimes 3.
Yeah. What?
There is, if I recall correctly, there is
All right, less
one
than 3.
creature
Okay.
that can reduce, that has the weird effect that I think
No.
could
So
really abuse this. It's 3
this
or
can put the
less.
toughness up to 4. Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's a less than or equal to thing here.
yeah. So you
Yeah.
can get 3 tokens from this, or 3 counters from this. But that being said, this is a 3/2 for 3, and I think there's no way this makes Pauper playability. But I do see, a 3/2 for 3. It trades down, so I'm not really happy about playing it in limited. But 3 power creatures, from what I've seen, usually trade with other 3 creatures. A lot of the 1-drops and 2-drops in this set have 1 power, so I'm going to call this Draft Chaff, I think. This is a card I'm
Yeah.
probably going to play in limited, but I'm not going to play anywhere else.
I completely agree. I don't like the part where it dies to do that, but I also think that's a huge flavor win for the card.
Yeah, definitely. Making our own main characters. Next up is Return Triumphant, which is a 2-mana sorcery. For a white and a colorless, you get return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard, create a young hero role, and attach to it. This card is recommission, but you get the 1/1 counters later, but you can get more of them. I think specifically in Pauper, constructed recommission is better for Breathless Knight, just because it gets the 1/1 counter right away. And either way, Breathless Knight can only get 1 counter from this card because of Breathless Knight's own ability. So I think I'd rather have recommission for the cards that want it. Unearth is just long been the staple for these type of effects, and I don't think this is going to dethrone it by any means. But I think in the right deck, this is probably very good in limited. But I don't even know if it's that good in limited. Like, limited, you want to have curve is very important. So you're not going to have too many CMC 3 or lesses, which means you're likely going to have to choose like your own 1-drop, 2-drop, or if you have one, 3-drop. Like on curve to bring this back on like turn 4, and that means that you're likely not playing a 4-drop, so you're going to be wanting this in an aggressive deck where you have multiple targets for it. This seems limited playable. I don't know if it's hyper limited playable, but it's certainly playable.
Yeah, I think that Return Triumphant is just we were talking earlier about cards that if they had different rules on them, it would have made the card better. And I think that Return Triumphant needed to have the royal roll on it.
Yeah, that would have been better.
Yeah, and then it would have been comparable, I think, to Recommission, but Recommission does still hold artifacts.
Yeah. All right, next up is Rhyme for Reindeer, a 3/4 for 4 mana, 3 and a white. Says you get an elk that says whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, tap a target creature an opponent controls. I'm past. This seems bad.
It seems bad for sure, but like it's got the whenever clause on it, and it's a 3/4 for 4. That's pretty beefy for what we've seen in white.
That's true.
I think that this is going to be reasonable to play in draft. I don't think it goes anywhere else.
Okay, all right. Draft Chaff it is. That's fine. Next up is Savior of the Sleeping, a 3-mana human knight that has vigilance, and whenever an enchantment you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, put 1/1 on it. It's a 2/3 to start out with, which isn't too bad. 1 counter on this card is probably enough, and it has enchantments that sacrifice themselves in this set at common. Plus, whenever a creature with a roll dies, the roll does die with it, so you get triggers off of your rolls entering the graveyard too. I think this card's probably pretty good in limited. But I don't think it's good anywhere else. There's like a really small consideration for cube, but I just don't think there's enough of one.
No, it's got potential in draft. Like this card is probably going to be your haymaker, but you have to have the right deck for it.
Yeah. And I haven't seen any hard removal yet. I mean, I've seen Kellen's Light Blades, and Moment of Valor, I think, can destroy it, but I haven't seen whether or not we have other hard removal. If hard removal is hard to get in this set, if it's all damage based, or like tap it and stun it, right? This card could be very strong. All right. Next up is Slumbering Keepguard. This is a 1/1 for 1 human knight. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield you control, scry 1. God, why didn't they just keyword when an enchantment enters the battlefield? They keyworded everything else in the set. And then you have 3 mana. It gets 1/1 until end of turn for each enchantment you control.
It's Constellation.
Wow. Yeah, that seems very strong, actually. Like 3 mana, 1/1 until end of turn for each enchantment you control. That counts rolls, and you can activate this ability more than once per turn. And it's a 1-drop to fill your curve. This card seems very good. I'm into this card. I don't think it's constructed playable.
Oh, I definitely do.
Really?
Yeah, I think this can find a home in Boggles.
Oh, I don't think so, just strictly because it doesn't have hexproof, and
This
that's
can be targeted.
very hard.
I think it can come out of the sideboard game too.
But I like that it doesn't necessarily have to be suited up either. It can just be itself, and you can tap 3 and pump it by like 4 or 5 sometimes, while your Boggle carries the other enchantments. And this is just kind of a mana spender. Yeah, no, I'm kind of down for has potential here.
Yeah, like it's also just the most effective enchantress now.
Yeah, no kidding. And it lets your Boggles, your Boggles deck scry 1s whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield, so that you can sculpt your draws. Yeah, I think you're right. This card actually might have a home in Boggles, just because it doesn't ever have to hold an equipment. It can just swing on its own and let the hexproof things have equipment and just sit as a value creature and like eat edict effects for you and stuff. Boggles is a pretty tight list, but this might have a home in there. I know previously we were running the enchantment dog, and like this might be able to just slot in for that. Yeah, okay, I'm in. Do you think this is a build around card? Like, do you think this is going to be a significant improvement, or do you think this is one of those has potential, we just want to test it out?
Yeah, I think it could be a sideboard. It's not sideboard only though. It's just like this could come in games too if you wanted it against the
I think it might make the main deck.
Make the main, yeah.
So what do you? I'm gonna call this has potential. I don't think it's gonna go like slam dunk in a deck right away like some of the other cards in this set, but it's definitely gonna see tests probably. All right, next up is Stockpiling Celebrant. This is a 3 mana 3/2 Dwarf Knight. When it enters the battlefield, you may return another target non-land permanent you control to its owner's hand. Scry 2. So this is another core Skyfisher, but for 3. And you scry 2 if you bounce a permanent, and it's a May, so you can run it out without anything on the board and not have to bounce a land, unlike Skyfisher. Ooh. I think this card has potential. I think this card can see play.
Yep.
Has potential it is. That's a nice and easy one. All right, next up is To Unveil Guide. A 4 mana fairy scout. It has flying. It's a 2/3. It has celebration, so as long as 2 or more non-land permanents have entered the battlefield under your control, it gets 1/0 and lifelink. I mean, lifelink is usually very good in limited, but this seems bad. It's a 4-drop, so like by that turn in the game, how many times are you going to be playing 2 or more permanents in a turn?
Not too often, and in white, you're not going to be drawing too many either.
And it's a 2/3 flyer for 4. That's like pretty below rate already.
Yeah, but also a 3/3 is above rate at that time, so like.
Yeah, but you'd have to play this on curve and then play 2 cards next turn in order for it to be a 3/3. And it doesn't have the lifelink if you haven't activated it. I think this is bad. I'm gonna slam dunk this card in the trash bin, even if I see it in my limited pool and I'm in white. I don't really think I'm playing it.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't think that the celebration is something I would want to trigger either. I'm probably gonna lean more towards the enchantment theme that white has.
Yeah. All right. Now it's worth noticing that celebration can be triggered off of the like ETB put a roll into play, because that is 2 non-land permanents entering the battlefield. So it might be easier to trigger than we think. But that being said, the fact that this only has flying and it only gains the lifelink on your turn because there's effectively no good way to to trigger Celebration at instant speed means that this doesn't block well, so it's only going to be good when you're racing. And as a 4-drop, it's not effectively statted for an aggressive card. It's not like a 3-1 like I would want it to be. If you're trying to like really kind of aggro and use this as a evasive finisher or something. So yeah, I think this card is a slam dunk into the garbage can. I'm gonna call this trash.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next up is Unassuming Sage. This is a 2/2 for 2 human, peasant, wizard. That's a lot of creature types. When it enters the battlefield, you may pay 2. If you do, create a sorcerer role token attached to it. Okay, so not another creature, but attached to this. So it's a 2/2 for 2, or it is a 2/2 for 4 that has 1/1, and whenever this creature attacks, scry 1. I gotta be honest, I think Sorcerer Role is one of the weaker roles. I do like the ability to scry 1 on attack, but on this specifically, paying 4 mana for a 3/3 that when it attacks you scry seems pretty bad in the face of like 3/3s for 3 like Jewel Thief and stuff that we've gotten recently. That being said, it is a curve filler, so this has probably got a home in limited. Scry is more powerful in limited, and this is a 2/2 for 2 when you want it, or it's a 4-drop when you don't. So I think this is probably draft.
Absolutely. I mean, we've moved on since Hail Giant was relevant.
Next up is blue. So we have Aquatic Alchemist, which is a 1/3 for 2 elemental. For blue and a colorless, you also get Bubble Up, which is a sorcery adventure. Put target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard on top of your library. And as a creature, when you cast your first instant or sorcery, it gets +2/+0. I like these effects in general. I think this is probably cube playable. I don't think it's more than that.
Yeah. So the decks that care about having spells a lot outside of familiars don't really want to be attacking with their creatures or want to have too many creatures.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see this guy slotting in, especially because that deck is it's still super tight.
Yeah.
I mean, at 3 mana, it's not too bad for the bubble up. It's better than the Bloodwater Elemental because you can't
Sure.
blue blast this.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got for this one.
But you
I
also
don't know.
don't get the creature when you cast the bubble up like you do with Bloodwater Elemental, and it doesn't really have prowess.
Yeah,
because it doesn't
but
trigger for more than once.
they do still go up to the same power and
Sure, but
toughness
only
as
for
that.
one spell cast. Anything
Exactly.
above that is gravy for Bloodwater. Anyway,
Yep.
let's see. I'm calling this a cube card unless you have strong opinions otherwise.
Nah, I can go there.
All right. Balluna's Gatekeeper is next. It's another adventure card. So for the adventure, we have Entry Denied, which is 2 mana, blue and a colorless for a sorcery. Return target creature you don't control with mana value 3 or less to its opponent's or to its owner's hand. And then it is a 6/5 for 6. This reminds me of
The
the
serpent.
the serpent. Yeah.
Yep,
This seems significantly worse than the serpent.
it is.
So that
Mhm.
means it's not going to make the cut in cube.
Yep.
I don't really like the mana requirement for limited either, but I think by the time they're playing cards that are out of reach of this card, it'll probably already be on the adventure.
Mhm.
So it's probably draft playable. I would play this in draft. I think it's
I would
good.
absolutely. It's good early, good late.
Yeah.
It fits in.
Okay. Next up is Diminisher Witch. This is a human warlock for 3, 2 and a blue. And for 3/2, you get Bargain. When it enters the battlefield, if it was Bargain, create a cursed roll and attach it to target creature an opponent controls. Cursed is it makes the enchanted creature 1/1. And if it said remove all abilities and creature is a 1/1, it would be amazing. But as it stands, this is just a very good card. This might be cube playable.
I agree. I think this can make the jump from draft.
Yeah, I think so too. So we'll slam that in cube. Freeze in place is next. It's a 2-mana sorcery for 2 and a colorless. You get tap target creature an opponent controls and put 3 stun counters on it. Scry 2. And then stun counters, if you're unfamiliar, it's if it would be untapped, you remove 1 stun counter from it instead. So this is going to keep it tapped for 3 turns. I wish this had draw a card instead of Scry 2, even though they are very close in mana value. I would just rather draw than Scry. This is probably as close to hard removal as blue is going to get in this set. So I mean, this has to be premium blue removal for draft, right? Like,
It's gonna be good. I mean, the Scry 2 on it is closer to draw a card than the previous iteration of Impede Momentum was. Which only scried 1. I'd still find it difficult to put it in the deck though. It just doesn't seem great later on, like when you're trying to actually remove something.
Yeah, that's fair. But I do think this is probably as close to premium removal as blue gets. So I don't think it's making the cut in cube, but it's certainly playable in draft.
All right.
Because I'm definitely playing this in draft, right? Like, it's still just removal for potentially 4 turns if you're on the offense and 3 turns if you're on defense. It seems
like,
good
the draft
enough
game
most of
just
the time.
goes so long that I feel like Freeze in Place is never going to be my first removal spell that I put in the deck.
No,
It'll
certainly
probably be the
not.
last one though.
Yeah, exactly. Next up, speaking of last cards you'll play, is Ice Out, which is a 3-mana instant speed counterspell. This spell costs 1 less to cast if it was bargain. So it can be counterspell or it can be cancel, based on whether or not you want to sacrifice something. Counterspells in general are not very good in limited, unless you save them for like your opponent's bomb, in which case they're an absolute blowout. But this card is never seen play outside of draft, I don't think.
Yeah.
I mean, in a format that just actually has counterspell, why would you ever just not play counterspell? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's not like there's so many slots you can offer where you have counterspell and Ice Out and
All right, Into the Fate Court is next. It's a 5-mana sorcery. Draw 3 cards. Create a 1/1 fairy creature token that can only block creatures with flying. There are a lot of tokens in this set that either can't block or have very specific stipulations on when they can block. In the face of Lorien Revealed, this card's never seeing the light of day in Pauper Constructed. In Limited, it's probably fine. Draw 3 for 5 in Limited isn't a creature, but it's going to win a lot of games on card value alone.
Oh, for sure. Like the amount of times you cast this in the end game,
Yeah.
you're going to win that.
And it's not a cube card. So, yeah, this seems like a draft chaff card for me.
Yeah.
Next up is Johan's Stopgap. This is a 4-mana, 3 and a blue sorcery with bargain. It costs 2 less if it was bargain. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Draw a card. So this is very similar to, oh man, what is it called from World Wake? The 2-mana bounce that with kicker 2, and if it was kick, draw a card.
Got the bird on it.
Man, I play it a lot.
Sorry, you're saying World Wake. That one's Into the Royal.
Yeah, Into the Royal.
What I was thinking of was Winds of Rebuke.
Sure. I was thinking Into the Royal, yeah, because it's a 4-mana bounce and draw, or it can be a 2-mana. I guess it can be a 2-mana bounce and draw if you bargain. Man, I think this might be a cube card. There's not a ton of enchantments to sacrifice, but there are a reasonable number of tokens and artifacts. And we're oftentimes paying 4 mana for this effect already, so paying 2 mana for that effect in some situations seems fine.
I think you're glossing over a word on this card, though.
Non-land.
Sorcery.
Oh, that too. I still think it's probably fine. I mean, it might see cube play. Hmm. 2-mana bounce draw card seems very good if you just like sacrifice your army token or something, you know.
It's super hard to pull that off
That's
in the
fair.
cube as
You
it
wanna
is.
you wanna throw this in draft chaff then, or do you think this is trash?
I think it's fine in draft chaff.
All right.
You're paying for your drawing card, you're undoing your opponent's turn. It's well, you're bouncing your opponent's um most expensive creature at least.
Fair enough. All right. Next up is Living Lectern. This is a 2-mana 0/4 artifact creature construct. For a blue and a colorless, you get 1 mana, sacrifice it, draw a card, then create a sorcerer roll attached to up to one other target creature you control. Sorcerer roll, as I said before, 1/1 and scry 1.
When it attacks, yeah. I like this card, actually. I want to say it has potential. It could be in like a sort of blue-red aggressive deck. So you
Really?
pay 1, you draw a card. Then you also, I just think it'd be really crazy curve if you're able to go Swift Spear into Lectern.
Well, why would you ever do Swift Spear into Lectern when you could do Swift Spear into like more
Because
red
I
cards?
want to make things more difficult for myself.
Okay.
No, I
That
like
checks
the
out.
idea of just making the thing you're already winning the game with. I like making it bigger.
Yeah,
Um,
but I don't like this is not Wall of Omens, and I feel like although Sorcerer Roll is pretty cool on like aggressive red creatures, one, you have to keep in mind that Pauper doesn't have dual lands that interplay untapped. So you have to like really have a good curve with the correct basics, or you have to sacrifice turn 1 to pull this off. And you still have to pay 1 to sacrifice it, which is really hard for me to get through even if you draw a card. Like I want this to just be Wall of Omens, but it's not, and I think this card is like bad. I don't think this has potential. I don't even think it's cube playable.
hmm. Yeah, you're probably right. I'm probably trapping myself with it, but I want I want to just min-max this card for some reason.
Well, I bet you can min-max the hell of it in limited.
Yeah, that's more correct.
All right, let's see what's up next. Merfolk Coralsmith is next. It is a 3-drop Merfolk. 2 and a blue gets you pay 1 mana. It gets +1, -1 until end of turn, and when it dies, you scry 2. This is the card that I want to put Young Hero on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I'm picking
So
up what you're putting
so
down.
this is the card I think wears Young Hero exceptionally well. Because as long as you have the mana to pay, you can just keep getting 1/1 counters on it,
You're
and
talking about your
it's a
cumulative up.
huge threat of activation because it's gonna be a 3/4 with Young Hero, like the first time you attack with it, and then if you don't have to, if it's blocked, you just leave it, and if it's not blocked, you can pump it to like fire breathe your opponent and also have it get bigger.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think this card carries Young Hero very well, but I think it's still just draft chaff. I don't think this is making the cut in cube at all.
Yeah, and I think that's more so because of the cards that make Young Hero more than
Yeah, sure.
this card itself.
Fair enough. All right, next up is Misleading Notes. This is a 4-mana instant, 3 and a blue. Target creature's owner puts it on the top or bottom of their library. Oh, so you do not get to choose.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
that's usually how these are templated, and I hate them
all right, well,
so much.
trash it is.
Absolutely.
I hate this at all. Okay, Mocking Sprite is a card I'm really excited about. This is a 3-mana 2/1 fairy rogue with flying. Instant sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. This is easily a cube card, but is it better than that? Do you think this card actually has constructed potential? I mean, this is Goblin Electromancer, but just blue, and I think in Pauper, monocolored cards tend to be more powerful than multicolored cards. Um, just because of how restrictive our mana base is.
Mm,
And it's a fairy, like, I think this might have potential.
yeah, I like the way that this looks. The Mocking Sprite. It's
I will
it
say
does
it
cost
does
one more,
still
but
die to gut shot, which is a
mhm.
weakness that every fairy thus far has had, and remains a very popular sideboard card against fairies. Um, but I think this card's really good. It's definitely a cube card, but I'm looking for reasons to go above that. You have any?
It costs 3.
So
I
cube
know
card.
Fairies has like Counterspell, but like that's not getting reduced.
Yeah.
I don't know what Fairies um wants to have reduced
Well,
or
so
what
I'm not sure that
playing
you
this
play
would
it in
enable.
fairies. I think that you
Mhm.
play it in like a red blue spellslinger deck, uh
Okay,
like is it like Goblin Electromancer, but this is just an evasive Goblin Electromancer that only costs blue.
fair. I
Um
think that actually makes it a little bit better, costing more in that respect then, because you don't have to have the untapped land and you're coming down on the same turn.
exactly.
Hmm.
And it has flying, so you can often chip in damage with it, and it lets you play ninjas if you really want to. But I don't think you play this like in the fairies deck. I think you play
Hmm.
this in the spells deck.
That's
Um,
fair. This could totally make it in that serpent
sure,
curve.
yeah. Uh huh. Like serpentine curve.
Hmm.
Yeah, maybe. Do you want to say this has potential then?
Yeah, I think it has potential.
All right, in potential it goes. Next up is Obria's Attendance. This is a 5 mana fairy wizard. It's a 3/4 flying, but it has an adventure. So before that, you get Desperate Party, which is 2 mana, blue and a colorless for an instant adventure. Target creature gets -4/-0 until end of turn. And it is a 3/4 flyer for 5 after that. Um,
Eh.
this card's going to be really good and limited, but I think that's where it's going to stay.
I mean, if it had flash,
No
then I think this
kidding.
would be much more better. Much more
No,
better.
get out of here.
um, yeah, I don't like it that much outside of I'm struggling with words. Limited.
All right, draft it is. I think that's probably the right place to go. Next up is Quick Study, a 3 mana, 2 and a blue instant to draw 2 cards. Goodbye, Divination. This is the new standard. This card's great. Um,
Yeah.
oh man, but we don't play Divination in the cube. Can I play this in the cube?
Absolutely. Yes.
There's got to be a place to put this in the cube, right? Like,
I mean, there's probably a place to put this in constructed.
I don't think so. Not with Meeting of the Minds in the format, but Quick Study can almost certainly make the cube. With Meeting of Minds in the format, you have to play Meeting of Minds. It's just so much better. It costs 1 more at base, but it has the ability to be free. Quick Study is only ever 3 mana for 2 cards.
That's fair. Ah man, it's 2 sets too late.
Yeah, right. And that's kind of the reason I'm struggling with whether or not it's a cube card, because do we just put Quick Study in, and if we do, like, does this card compete with it? Do we cut something else for this card? Do we
Mm,
play both? I don't think we play both. I mean, we already have Treasure Cruise. Like, how many of these type of spells can we afford in blue in the cube? I don't know.
um, hmm. I would like to see both in the cube, but I think that Meeting the Minds has more of a place just because there's a higher creature count usually,
Yeah.
and this is, if anything, in constructed would have to go in more of a creatureless kind of
I'm gonna
deck.
say this is a cube
But,
card.
mhm.
I'm not 100% sure about that, but we'll look at it. I want to at least discuss it. And we've put
Mm,
other cards on the cube section for discussion. So I think it's above draft chat for sure.
absolutely.
Next up is Spare Master Sprite, one of my picks for the absolute best card of the entire set, not just blue. This is a 1/1 fairy wizard for 1 blue. Of course, it has flying, it is a fairy. But when it enters the battlefield, you may pay 2 colorless. When you do, tap target creature an opponent controls and put a stun counter on it. Uh, This card has mono blue fairy ninjas like Fae written all over it. This card is so good. Um, I think it might be good enough to replace Fairy Miscreant, which is a card that has long since been the one-drop fairy of choice next to Fairy Seer, just because it's the only other one-drop fairy. So we might finally have a fairy to take Fairy Miscreant out of our decks. I am slamming this in the build around pile. I think this is our first build around card. This card's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Miscreant is worse than this. It just relies on too much luck in the deck.
Yeah.
That being
Oh,
said, Miscreant could be 9 and 10
that's
on
true.
your one drop fairies.
All right, next up is Spell Stutter. Blue colorless, so 2 mana for a colorless and a blue instant. Counter target spell unless this controller plays 2, plus an additional 1 for each fairy you control. This card is going to be counterspell a lot, but why would you ever play this over counterspell? And I don't think you ever play it alongside counterspell. So I don't actually know that this card sees play in Pauper. It's not going to be in the cube because we don't have Tribal. I don't even know if this card makes the cut in Draft Chaff. So as exciting as this card looks, I think it might just be trash.
Yeah, it is exciting, but it probably is trash just because at 2 mana, there's Miscalc.
If this was
If,
one
and also
blue, if this was just
there's
like
mana leak,
better
so it needs
Spell
to be more.
Pierce,
Mhm.
if this was just like an upgrade to Spell Pierce and had the upside for fairies, like what if this was, instead of counter target spell unless its controller plays 2 plus 1 for each fairy, it was like 1 blue counter target non-creature spell, or counter target spell unless if it was like Force Spike. If it was like counter target spell unless its controller pays 1 for each fairy you control, or something like that. You know what I mean?
I see what you mean. It would be like non-creature. I think we're just like doubling Spell Pierce's effect.
No. I
Like
think
2
this
for
should just be
each.
a straight up Force Spike. Can counter any spell, but you don't get the base pay 2. It
I
just says pay
really,
1 for each fairy.
really not a fan of getting fairies at 1 mana counter spell.
Well, they already have
Like
the
hard
spell.
counter like that. Yeah, but it's just another thing. Like just playing against that kind of a deck
That's true.
is maddening. So
I just think it'd be really interesting to get like a Tribal Matters counter spell, because we have Tribal Matters damage spells, but we don't have a Tribal Matters counter spell in this fashion. We do have like Mystical Dispute, right? That costs less if you control a wizard, but
so what if it was
be interesting.
instead? I understand they're going for the spell stutter flavor, but what if it was like it cost 4, 3 and a blue, and it cost 1 less, and it hard countered a spell, but it cost 1 less for each fairy you control.
Okay, I can see that too, like Affinity for Fairies.
Yeah,
That'd be interesting. If it was just like 3
because
and a
that's the only
blue
way
counter target spell, and then it had Affinity for Fairies.
that's the only way I can see it making
Yeah,
more waves, like being played over counterspell
sure.
or alongside at least,
Yeah.
or even because like right now mana leak is better if you control, or at the same if you control 1 fairy.
Yeah. And nobody plays Mana Leak.
Exactly. And that deck fairies has what?
Counterspell
8
and Spell
fairies in
Stutter
it?
and
Like
Spell Pierce. Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't run so many.
All right. Yeah. I think this is trash. I think this is actually like, this is what I would call a trap card.
Yeah.
All right. So next up, we've talked long enough about that. We're almost done with blue. This is Stormkeld Prowler. This is a 2/1 for 2. When you cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater, you put 2 1/1 counters on it. You made the interesting point of bringing up both Cryptic Serpent and Tolarian Terror triggering this card, which is actually kind of crazy. Yeah, man, this becomes a 4/3 with 1 trigger. Now, I hate the fact that it's still boltable even after it pumps itself.
Yeah.
That's a big detriment for this card with how popular red is, I think. So I don't think this is a build around. This might might have potential if you really want to make a case for that. I don't think this is a cube card, so I think this is like either draft chaff, or if you think it has potential, I'm willing to make that concession. Because I don't actually see this seeing play. I think that
Yeah.
the Cryptic Serpent and Tolarian Terror are threatening enough by themselves. They don't really need backup.
Yep.
And this card just takes away from the consistency of that deck by taking a creature slot away from the rest of the deck.
Yeah. So like having time to think and simmer on it, you're right. I don't think this is seeing play. It's a cool magical Christmas land, but I mean, I don't see this being played over the Archaeomancer.
Well, then I think it's probably trash then, because I'm
Yeah,
not
it's
going to
just when
play
it
this
comes in
in
and doesn't
draft.
do anything right
Yeah.
away. Which,
I think this is probably trash then, because I'm not playing it in limited.
yeah. There's got to be so many more ways. Like you gotta have like 3
Yeah.
more large spells that we could
Sure.
cast for practically free to make
Sure.
this good.
All right. Well, next up is Vantress Transmuter. This is another adventure creature. So starting out with the adventure, we have Croaking Curse. This is a 2-mana sorcery for blue and a colorless. You tap target creature, put a cursed roll on it. Once again, cursed is that the enchanted creature is 1/1. And when you play the creature, it's a 3/4 for 4 human wizard. For 3 and a blue. Once again, similar to the 1-mana one that we said was cube playable, the curse is the better version, and the creature is fairly unexciting. But because it is both, it's probably good enough. So I'm thinking this is probably cube contention.
Yeah. I mean, I like this card a lot. It's
I mean, putting it
honestly
on
it's
the
got
cube
cube.
list is not nothing. It's nothing to sniff
It's
at.
not nothing. I know. I like the card on both halves of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the second half is just enhanced by the first part of it.
Yeah.
So like I know it probably doesn't have potential. Could maybe be sideboard, but I don't see this being played over like witness protection.
Yeah, I don't either.
It's
It's
So
a
like
it's
I
a
want
cube
it to
card.
be
I think.
better than cube card, but it's cube.
All right. Last for blue is Water Wings for 1 and a blue. Instant until end of turn. Target creature you control has base power and toughness 4/4, gains flying, and has hexproof. So this is similar to what was it? Wings of Vel from original Lorwyn that gave something changeling and gave it 4/4 flying. So now instead of changeling, we're getting hexproof. Do you think that makes this card better than just draft chaff? Because Wings of Vel was pretty famously only playable in limited.
Yeah, I really need this kind of a card to be proactive as opposed to reactive, because that's what hexproof is for me.
Agreed. This
Like it
needs
needs to
to
be
have
a
like this needs to be 4/4 flying, and if it damages a player, draw a card or something. You know what I mean? This needs to be good on offense, I think, because by default, making something a 4/4 with flying out of nothing is already defensive enough. I don't think it needs hexproof. And if we want hexproof, we have like, what was it like? Oh, what's the scales card?
Cradle Wings or whatever.
Well, we have the 1-mana like 1/1 counter and hexproof in blue.
Oh.
The one with like the crab on it. Shore Up. I think it was Shore Up.
Maybe.
So I mean, we already have similar effects to that in blue.
Wasn't it like Cradle of Destiny, the 2-mana one that's currently played, or like a star cloak on it? Yeah, it's something.
But for Water Wings, I mean, you think this is better than draft? Because I don't. I think it's limited only.
I think it's bordering trash and limited only.
Yeah. I'm probably gonna play this if I need spells in limited, just because it can take my like my 1/1 dude and make him a 4/4 flying. Like I like that it gives evasion, so I can definitely kind of commit to the dome my opponent for 4 if I need to at instant speed. But
yeah, and also you can just straight up kill any flyer that we've seen so far.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm down to call this Draft Chaff. This seems like a card I would probably play in limited just because it is a combat trick and it does increase power, so you can like, especially if they try to do funny stuff like, you know, block your creature or attack into your creature and then you block and then they finish it off with damage after the fact. This lets you do a lot of like responsiveness. So I'm kind of into that. I'll leave it in Draft Chaff, I think, for now.
You got to make sure if you're doing that it hasn't taken 4 damage
Yes,
before then.
yeah, clearly. All right, next up is Baronati. This is a 2-mana fairy. It's black, so we have a return to like the Lorwyn Black Fairy Rogues. It is a 1/3 with flying, and it has lifelink as long as you control another fairy, and then it has bad fire breathing. For 2 and a black, it gets 1/0. Boy, oh boy, have we fallen a long way from 1 red equals 1 power. 3 for 1 seems awful. 1 for 2 with lifelink with flying for 2 seems like all right. It's no Vampire Nighthawk. I hate to say it, I think this card's bad. I don't even know if I play this in limited.
I mean, it's gonna have some relevance in limited still.
6
Just any
mana
amount
to
of
make this a
lifelink.
3/3
I'm not even looking at the 3. I'm looking at a 1/3 for 2 flying
with lifelink.
lifelink.
Yeah,
And then when you
sure.
have nothing else to do,
Admittedly, we haven't
if
seen all that
you have
many
nothing else to do,
fairies. There's only like 3.
a lot of them are in white. A lot of them.
There's only like 3 fairies we saw in blue. We haven't. I don't see any immediately in black besides this one. I just don't know how often this thing's gonna have lifelink in limited. You know.
Mm-hmm. I say a lot. There's only the one, right? I thought I saw more than that.
I think it's just
Maybe
the
I'm
one.
just thinking about the. Oh, there's 2. Yeah, there's the other lifelink
Oh, right,
fairy
right.
in white.
But
Like a lot of the impactful cards I was remembering.
so, do we really think this is gonna have lifelink a lot? Should we evaluate this as a 1/3 lifelink? Because I was just evaluating this as a 1/3 flyer, and I think it's bad. I guess it's probably fine. Like I'd put this in draft.
I'd put it in draft only because we're not looking at the uncommons as well.
Yeah.
But I think that it's definitely
Okay.
reasonable that you'd have another fairy.
Next up is a card I know you're excited about. It's Candy Grapple.
Mm-hmm.
1,
yeah, buddy.
Great Pun. 2, it is a pretty good card. So we're looking at this. It is a 2-mana instant for a black and a colorless. You get Bargain, and then target creature gets -3/-3. And if this spell was Bargain, that creature gets -5/-5 instead. I mean, you've made a pretty strong argument for this card to me before we started, but if you want to kind of lay it out in a shorter terms, I think this card's probably pretty good. I'm inclined to say this card has potential, but if you want to argue that it's a build around, I'm down to hear it.
Oh no, not build around, but I think it would definitely take the place of
Final Flourish.
Yeah, Final Flourish in
Sure.
at least in Affinity.
I
So
will
think
say the ability to kill both a Kenku animated land and the new 3/3 animated land from the green spell that we'll talk about later, at base without having to sacrifice anything is probably very powerful.
Yeah.
So for that reason alone, it's probably worth it, especially with how many people are playing Kenku right now for like all that glitters and stuff like that. It's probably good enough, admittedly.
I know, like, there's a huge jump in power and toughness between 3 and the next card that's played. So this killing everything that you need it to without needing to lose any other resources except for the card from your hand is
and when it's gravy, you can sacrifice the artifact, right? If you want to sacrifice your Chromatic Star, if you want to sacrifice your Wellspring, you can. You just don't need to, which I think is a net positive for the deck. So I'm convinced. I'll put this as has potential. I was borderline build around. I mean, you could have convinced me, but we'll leave it where it is. Let's see. Next up is Conceited Witch. This is another adventure creature. So first off, we have Price of Beauty, which is a 1 black sorcery. Create a Wicked Roll and attach a target creature you control. Wicked Roll is when this aura is put into the graveyard, each opponent loses 1 life, and it has +1/+1. So, Wicked really doesn't seem all that good to me, but it is a 2/3 with Menace for 3 when you play its creature side. 10 out of 10 art. This card has amazing art. This feels like trash. I don't think this card's good.
Yeah, it's not. It's not a good one.
I mean, I might play it in draft, but only because I don't have other good creatures. This is not something I'm happy about opening by any means.
Yeah, this is a later card. This is a filler in
Yeah,
the curve for me.
for sure. Next up is Ariet's Whisper. This is a 4-mana sorcery for 3 and a black. Oh, so it's bad. Target opponent discards 2 cards, create a Wicked roll, and attach it up to 1 creature you control. Once again, Wicked is +1/+1, and when it goes to the graveyard, each opponent loses 1 life. This card's trash.
You know, the entire time I was reading it, I thought it was a Mind Rot variant, but that even then it wasn't playable.
Yep. Yeah, it's even worse than that.
Oh.
All right, next up is
Rot.
Feed the Cauldron. For 3 mana instant, 2 and a black gets you destroy target creature with mana value 3 or less. If it's your turn, create a food token. So this is very similar to Bake into a Pie. But it doesn't destroy any creature anymore, but it only costs 3.
Notably, it takes a black pip off.
Yeah, but it only gives you the food if it's your turn, and I think that is a meaningful downshift.
It's just that's when you got extra time, you know.
I'll be honest, I'm hoping there's better black removal than this. I wish this had like bargain to destroy any creature.
Mm-hmm.
As it is, I think this card's pretty bad. I'm not playing this.
No, I'm not playing this in anything except for limited.
I don't even want to play it in limited. Yeah, maybe as a one of. I'm gonna call this trash. I don't think this is draft playable.
Yeah, I think the only time I would play this in limited though is like I would need that food token, so I'd have to do it on my turn. And like in anything else, we have Smother.
Yep.
Like this.
All right. So next up is Fell Horseman. This is a 4-mana zombie knight, 3/3. When it dies, you put it on bottom of its owner's library, but it also has an adventure. So definitely ride for 1 and a black. At sorcery, you get to return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. I mean, this is just strictly like basically better Dance of the Dead, right? Like, not Dance of the Dead, Corpse Dance. What's the one that just gets a creature back?
Yeah, Corpse Dance, I think.
So I think this is just an upgrade. I mean, I think Corpse Dance only costed 1 black though, right?
I think it's just this one's an interesting twist on the life and death aspect of the other horseman that was in the previous one, where it's pay 3, kill something.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is probably pretty bad. I do like that when it dies, it goes to the owner of its bottom of its owner's library. That's pretty interesting, but the recursion seems meh. I'm inclined to call this trash.
Yeah, oftentimes the putting it on the bottom of its owner's library though is a drawback.
Yeah, because you want it in the graveyard.
Exactly.
Next up is a card that I think is very good and is likely to join our fairy friend in build around. This is Hopeless Nightmare. This is the number 2. Was there a blue enchantment? What was the blue enchantment?
I don't remember there being one.
I didn't see one.
Not in common, at least.
Interesting.
It's not common then.
That's very interesting. I wonder if Scryfall's missing it. That's super weird. We'll have to look into that in a second. Hopeless Nightmare enters the battlefield. Each opponent discards a card and loses 2 life. And when it's put in the graveyard from the battlefield, you scry 2. Now, unfortunately, this isn't when it leaves play, scry 2. That would be absolutely bonkers. However, this card is an absolute MVP next to Core Skyfisher. This card is great. Losing 2 life and discarding a card. When you combine this with Omen of the Dead, like, you get into some really powerful like bounce loops with Core Skyfisher and Hopeless Nightmare and Omen of the Dead, and you can really start to put some pressure on your opponent. And I really, really like this card. I think this card's incredibly strong. I'm inclined to throw this in the build around variant. I think this is going to spark white-black decks, definitely.
Oh, yes. No, unquestionably so. Like, that would actually, to me, Make that 3-drop white creature that we saw previously.
Better.
Yeah, better.
I think so too.
And
And we already put it in has potential, so.
yeah, right.
Yeah, I think Hopeless Nightmare is one of the best cards of the set, next to the Stun Fairy. Next up, though, is Minstrosity. Such a good pun. 3/1 horror for 2. Colorless and a black says when it dies, create a food token. I've already said my piece about Blade of the Six Prides. I'm not a huge fan of 3/1s. Incidental food is a marginal upside, but this feels like draft chaff to me.
I'm always looking for something that leaves behind material when it dies or when it enters. And so there's maybe something here, but generally it's better if that thing it makes shares a type with it.
Yeah.
So you can like, for instance, Ashnod's Altar.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
But I don't see what the abuse is for this card
I don't either.
immediately.
And as a 2-mana 3/1, it feels fairly mid already. So the dies leaves a food seems mid at best. Now, if Cauldron Familiar or if Cauldron Familiar absolutely like pops off in Pauper and like everyone plays every food creation card that exists, then this card might see some play. But I think this is largely going to be lost in the draft bin.
Absolutely. Like, this needed to be another when it dies, make a roll, I think, to have more
Maybe.
synergy.
If it was like ETB, make a food, or ETB, make a roll, and then when it dies, make a food, if this had a little bit extra on it, it'd probably be good.
Oh, yeah.
All right, next up, Not Dead After All, 1 black instant. Until end of turn, target creature you control gains when this creature dies, return it to the battlefield, tapped under its owner's control, then create a wicked roll attached to it. So this is a really interesting variation on a card we've seen a lot of lately. We've seen so many of the Undying Evils and all of these variations where it just gives your creature until end of turn, it comes back and then do something, either with a 1/1 counter or a -1/-1 counter or a +1/+1 counter, or now a wicked roll. I think this is slightly better than the 1/1 counter version, just because Proliferate's not really a thing that exists in Pauper too much. So in general, I think the 1/1 +1/+1 of the roll and the 1/1 counter are equivalent. So this just gets one little extra oomph in the fact that when it dies, each opponent loses 1 life.
Oh yeah. No, I think that this is definitely one of the better versions of that we've seen for sure.
So I'm slamming this and has potential. What do we think?
It's the fact that it's the best of those doesn't mean that I think it'll be made into constructed.
I don't think we're building a new deck for this card, but I have seen like Crawl from Below played in mono black control variants and things of that nature already. As well as things like people used to play it in like Black Blue Turbo Terror to beat Edicts.
Oh, okay.
So I think that there is room for this card in existing constructed decks, so I'm willing to put it in has potential so we can test it out. But I am also willing to say that maybe the format's moved past that a little bit, and this is probably a sideboard card.
That's fair. Yeah.
Do you want to throw this in sideboard as our first sideboard only card?
Yeah.
All right.
I like that.
Sideboard only it is. I think that's probably fair. All right, continuing out, we have Rat Out is next. Instant speed, 1 black mana says up to 1 target creature gets -1/-1, and you create a 1/1 black rat creature token with this creature can't block. This is a worse fungal infestation. So for that reason, I think it's bad, right? I guess it's not strictly worse because you can't, you can play it when there's no creature on the board. But the reason I say worse is because the fungal token can block and the rat can't. And I think largely that's going to be more important.
Yeah, I was roughly equating them. Like, yeah, I think Fungal Outbreak is probably better though, just for the blocking. You're right.
Yeah, so we throwing this in trash because this feels like trash.
We've seen a lot of Blade of the Six Prides. I'd maybe draft chaff if you have token synergies. but trash
Sure.
probably.
Sure. I'm down for draft. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean bargains, you know.
Yeah, sure. Bargains matter. Okay, next up is Rowan's Grim Search. This is a 3-minute instant with Bargain, speaking of. If this spell was Bargain, look at the top 4 cards of your library, then put up to 2 of them back on top of your library in any order and the rest into your graveyard. Then you draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life. We've seen a fair number of a fair number of variations of these type of cards. Everybody knows Night's Whisper, Sign in Blood, but lately we saw, what was it, Read the Bones, then we saw the, not Prismatic, but Domain one out of
Domain one,
Dominaria.
Arrow
And
Prophecy.
now we see a Bargain version. Notably, the Domain one and this one are both 3-mana instants instead of 3-mana sorceries or 2-mana sorceries like we've seen in the past. I did place that card very highly, but it has yet to really make a splash. And I'm inclined to learn from that mistake and say maybe this card's not as good as I hoped it would be. That being said, is this card better than Read the Bones because it's an instant? Because, I could see an argument for playing this in the cube over Read the Bones.
I actually like this card a lot for its design in the way that it functions in two completely different decks, based if you want to bargain or if you want to just draw. So I think that this card itself, having the 2 different modes that play so differently, it could fit in 2 different decks. So I'm going to give it twice the amount of chances as Shadow Prophecy. I like it for the paying the 3. I like just base without bargaining. I think that one, it could fit in the cube for sure in both ways. So I think it would go over Read the Bones, yeah.
Cube it is. I'm inclined to take a look at Read the Bones and see if maybe Rowan's Grim Search makes it over that. Next up is Scream Puff, another amazing name. This is a 5-mana horror. For 4 and a black, you get a creature with Death Touch. It is a 4/5, and it says whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you create a food token. So this is one of the only recurring food generators we have in Pauper. This is not Diregraph Horde by any means, right? Like, that card's so much better than this, but I don't think this card's bad. It's certainly seeing play in draft, right? Like, what do we think besides that?
I think Wizards really hates that we think Death Touch is better on smaller creatures. These past few sets, they've been on a crusade to try and show us that we're wrong.
Okay.
Because, like, how many large creatures have had Death Touch on them recently?
A lot.
And we're
You're
just not playing any of them?
Yep.
Yeah. I don't think this is going anywhere outside of draft.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Draft chaff it is. Alrighty then. Next up is Shatter the Oath. For 5 mana, 3 and 2 black. You get a sorcery that says destroy target creature enchantment, create a wicked roll attached to up to 1 creature you control. This is the unconditional removal I was asking for, but boy, is this bad. This is far cry from bacon to a pie, which seems like a real flavor whiff considering we have like Sweet Tooth Witch coming up in a little bit, and she literally is holding a pie that looks like it could have come right off that card. I think this card's bad. I don't even want to... you're going to play this in draft, and it's going to feel fine, I guess, but you're not happy about it. I think this is trash.
It's trash, yeah. It, again, needs a different role on it.
Agreed. I think that it needed a different role. If this was destroy a creature and then give a cursed roll to something else, it would be quite
exactly good. Yeah, it would be one of the better... it would still be draft chaff, but it would be one of the better 5-mana removal spells.
Okay, next up is Stingblade Assassin, which is a 4-mana 3/1 with flying and flash. For 3 and a black, you get a Fairy Assassin that says when it enters the battlefield, destroy target creature an opponent controls that was dealt damage this turn. What do we think?
I mean, 3 power is pretty good in the air. I like it more than Manticore from previous sets. I
Yeah,
don't really like. You're really only trying to alpha strike with your rats if you're trying to get value off of this. Make them, you know, think that you don't have anything. Like you're just attacking with your
sure.
tokens. It's that being said though, this staying in draft. I think. I don't think it's making the jump to cube.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, in draft it goes. Next up, let's see what we've got. We have we have Sugar Rush, a 2-mana instant, so black and a colorless. Target creature gets +3/+0. Draw a card. This has like 2-for-1 me, all written all over it. I think this card's real bad.
It's bad.
Trash it is. Next up is Sweet Tooth Witch. This is a 3-mana, 3/2 human warlock. When it enters the battlefield, you create a food token, and you can pay 2 to sacrifice a food, and target player loses 2 life. This is really interesting to me because this card doesn't need to tap for its ability. You just pay the mana. It creates a food token, so it already kind of combines with Cauldron Familiar. Plus, you add in like Gingerbrute and Golden Egg and maybe Lembas, and all of a sudden you've got kind of an engine here because your cat drains and this just domes people for 2. I think this card might have potential. Surprisingly, I think because it's black and it's unsnuff outable, I think that's even better. What do you think?
I think that it's reasonable. This could make the jump in. It could be cube if there was that food underlaying
I
already
don't
in
think it
there.
makes the cut
But
in cube.
yeah, that's only because it doesn't have the food support
Yes,
in the cube.
correct. Mm-hmm.
But if it did have it, I think that's the power level it's at. I don't think he's making it into constructed. I think 2 is too much to pay to make someone lose 2 life.
Mm. All right, well, I'm gonna pull you. I'm gonna push this card into has potential. I think this card's better than we think.
That's fair. I know I've done it.
So I think that's my turn. I'm gonna call a executive decision on that one. Let's see. Next up is Voracious Vermin, which is a 3-mana rat for 2 and a black. You get when it enters the battlefield, create another 1/1 rat creature token with this creature can't block. It is a 2/1, and whenever another creature you control dies, put a 1/1 counter on it. We've seen several variations of cards like this in Pauper recently. Gixian Infiltrators, and then we got the downshift of the Satyr that gets a 1/1 and can sacrifice a creature to ping something and it can't block. Lots of cards that start to grow when other things die have come into Pauper over the last couple of sets, and I think we are getting to a rather interesting position where the critical mass, I think, has now been achieved. It's just about efficiency of the creatures that grow and the sacrifice outlets that they get to be used with. That being said, this is 2 bodies for 3 mana. It is effectively a 3/2 spread out over 2 bodies and can grow. I want to say this is a cube card, and it might be evaluatable with the cube update, but I suspect this is going to get stuck in draft chaff. It just doesn't feel good enough for constructed, and I think that's probably gonna keep it in draft.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I am. I think that if this were a 2-mana 1/1 still made a 1/1 rat that can't block, that's when it gets the discussion to be moved into constructed play.
Mm-hmm.
Just because would be the only one that grows of this, the only creature of this type that grows and provides some of its own fodder.
Sure.
But outside of that, I mean, 3 mana is a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think it's getting stuck in draft.
Okay. Next up is Warehouse Tabby. 1/1 for 1. Whenever an enchantment you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, create a 1/1 creature token with that creature can't block. or sorry, this creature can't block, and then you can pay 2 mana and it gains Death Touch until its turn. This card is...
The rats come in and they target a creature and they say, that creature can't block.
Hey, creatures can be scared of rats. Look at the artwork. That cat is
That
terrified
is-
of those rats.
Man, that cat is terrified of more than just those.
Yeah, I think this card is pretty good. There have already been people brewing around this card, making an infinite loop with Rancor. If you have Rancor plus Warehouse Tabby with Ashnod's Altar and an Energy Refractor, you have Infinite Storm.
I love that.
I don't know what that does for you, but you have Infinite Storm.
You have infinite ETB triggers too.
That's true.
But that's 3 colors you did.
But all the pieces except Ashnod's Altar, so it's 2 1-drops, a 3-drop, and a 2-drop.
Mm-hmm.
And it's black-green, so it is in like reasonable combo colors already. It's in Weather the Storm colors for your Infinite Storm.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's good enough, but it's probably in the has potential pile just because people are already talking about combos with this card.
Oh, absolutely no. This card's
Do you want to say build
potential.
around? I mean, it has potential for sure, but do we think it has
Mhm.
more than that?
I do think it's actually a build
You
around.
think this is a build around?
Yeah.
I mean, people are already building around it, so I guess that
it's
does
literally by definition.
Yeah, meets it specified the specifications. All right. Next up is Wicked Visitor, which is a 2/2 for 2 nightmare. For a black and a colorless, you get whenever an enchantment you control is put into a graveyard, each opponent loses 1 life. This is draft chaff for sure, right?
This is that payoff.
Yeah, no, to be fair, this goes very well with the Warehouse Tabby combo. But I don't think that itself is a build around. I think it's a payoff. It probably has potential only because of Warehouse Tabby. But otherwise, it's a draft chaff card.
Yes.
Do you want to put it in draft chaff, or are we calling it a has potential just because of Warehouse Tabby?
I mean, a lot of cards really have a niche just because of one other card.
That's
like
true.
Splinter Twin. So
Draft chaff it is.
yeah.
Well, I think Splinter Twin's probably a really bad comparison because people would call Splinter Twin a hyperplayable. But
that's for sure. But I mean, it was Splinter Twin and Exarch or the Fairy, and
true.
I mean like the Fairy and Exarch were really only played because of Splinter Twin.
Yeah, so I would call Wicked Visitor more of like a Pestermite than a Splinter Twin.
I don't sometimes English words good.
Anyway, moving on to red now. Bellowing Bruiser is our first red card. It is an adventure card. So we have Beat a Path for 3 mana, 2 in a red. You have a sorcery that says up to target 2 target creatures can't block this turn. And then you have for 5 mana, 4 colorless and a red, you have an Ogre 4/4 with haste. 4/4 Ogre for 5 with haste is actually very on rate for limited, at least. Now it's no boarding party, obviously. If the adventure was better, I think this card is good. But unfortunately, because the adventure is just falter and it doesn't like draw a card or anything, I think this card's probably trash.
I do like how it says up to 2.
Yeah.
But I mean, that seems like it's on rate for an adventure and for that effect. Maybe if it dealt 1 to those creatures as well.
Yeah, maybe if it was a ping or if it drew a card or something. I don't know. But it needs to do just a little bit more work, I think.
Yeah, I think this is going to be stuck in draft. If not, no, it's not trash. It's stuck in draft.
We can say draft. Next up is Bespoke Battle Guard. This is our first equipment of the set. A colorless and a red gets you an artifact equipment. Encrypt creature gets +2/+0. And then we have Celebration. Attach it to up to 1 target creature you control. That's it. I'm rereading it again just to make sure. Nope, that is it. And it can pay 2 mana to equip it normally. Wow, that really doesn't feel like a celebration, does it? Just kind of feels like
Hey, yay, we're celebrating your new armor. You
right.
know,
That
that's a
yeah,
celebration.
that feels very like yay. And there was much rejoicing. Yay. Um this is
I
at best draft chaff, right? Like I don't
what's funny is the equip cost is the easiest
yeah,
it
I
could
know it's
be.
easier to equip than it is to celebrate it.
Yeah. It's like, no, we must have this whole ceremony. No, I can put it on right now. It's okay. Watch, I'll do it. Well,
Yeah, this is definitely not Bone Splitter. I think this is probably draft chaff at its finest.
hmm
Like I'm gonna play it because it's an equipment. Equipment are good, but this
Oh yeah, in
seems
draft
bad
it's very
anywhere
good.
else.
hmm
Next up is Cut In. Cut In is a 4 mana sorcery. Jesus. Three in a red. Sorry. Deals 4 damage to target creature and create a young hero role attached to a creature you control. 4 damage for 4 mana is not the rate I want. Sorry. When white has a better damage spell than red, we're in the worst of timelines. This is trash. Especially at sorcery. If it was an instant, maybe I could see an argument for paying 4 mana for 4 damage, but this seems bad. And it can only target creatures? Yeah, I'm not into this.
I mean, you can call it trash. I think you're playing this in red. I read ahead a bit,
I don't
and I
think
think
you
this is
are.
their
I
best one.
don't think so. And I
I think
think
this is red's
white
best
has a
removal
better
spell.
one.
It does, but you're playing red and not white. If you're playing red and not white, then regrettably you stuck with this one. But it does
No, I
have
think there's
the
a I
second
think
best
there's
role
I think
for
the 3-drop one is better than this 95% of the time, and the 1-drop one is better this like most of the time. I think this is the worst burn spell in red, like for this set easily.
it.
Because they both of the other ones only target creatures, so it's competing for a slot with 2 other cards in this set, and both of the other cards are more efficient damage to mana.
More efficient damage to mana, yes.
And I
But
don't think
with
the young
this,
hero rule is
Mhm.
good enough. It doesn't have a 1/1 just all on its own, and this is a sorcery.
Mhm.
That seems awful.
I think that this card is being cast as a sorcery more often though, because of the way the young hero role acts.
I mean, sure, that part matters, but if it was a better role, it wouldn't
Mhm.
need to be sorcery. I think this is being downgraded to
Mm,
sorcery just to make young hero better, when in reality this is just bad and you shouldn't care about young hero.
Maybe. I don't know. I'll know more when we
You
play
want
with
this
it.
in draft? I think okay.
It's I
That's a you call. I
I'm
think this
willing.
is trash.
You know what? It's just 4 seems very relevant for the things it can kill. Like Scream Puff, I think was one of the only
Four or
2 things.
five. But
Yeah, one of
yeah,
the
but
only
you
2 that
pay
doesn't kill.
4 mana as well. You're tapping out to do that. And you don't get a creature. It's not like you can end of turn this or respond to something with this. And we've seen
Mhm.
tons
Of
of
protection spells and stuff.
yes.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, you know what? All right,
Have
we'll
I
call
have
this
I
one trash.
convinced you?
Yeah,
All right,
but it just doesn't
trash it
feel
is.
good.
It
I'm
really
playing it
doesn't.
as removal spell number 3 in red though.
I think I'm gonna play this at like only if I need a 6th or 7th spell, and I would almost always play a creature instead if I can.
Ooh.
All right, next up is Edgewall Pack. This is a 4 mana 3/3 dog for 3 and a red. You get a menace 3/3 dog, and when it enters, you get a 1/1 rat token that can't block, and that's cute because the rat is like riding the pack of dogs in the artwork. 5 out of 7 for theme. Um,
hmm
I liked the card. I love the artwork, but the card is bad.
Yeah, the card's not great. There's the goblin that came out a couple sets ago that's better.
Yeah.
He doesn't have menace. He has haste, which I think
Yes.
is better.
And didn't he make a
Um,
2/2?
no, he made a 1/1, I think.
Oh, okay.
hmm But he could block.
Um, I mean, I'm playing this in draft probably just because it's 2 bodies for 1 card,
Absolutely.
and because it separates the 1/1 so that
And
you can
because he
bargain with
quit
it.
the bespoke battle garb. Oh my goodness.
Okay, let's
Equipment.
not. Next is Flick a Coin. 3 mana instant for 2 and a red. You get deal 1 damage to any target, create a treasure token, and draw a card. That is a lot of text on a red instant. Unfortunately, I just don't think it's good enough. Is this worth a card in limited, do you think? Because I don't think it is. This has
No,
like storm-ish written all over it. Like if this was 2 mana to deal a damage treasure token, draw a card, I could see it. If this was 1 mana, it would be nuts. If this was 2 mana, deal 2 damage, treasure, draw a card, it'd be nuts. If this was 3 mana, deal 2 damage, make a treasure, draw a card, it'd be good. But 3 mana for 1 damage, 1 treasure, 1 card does not seem good enough to me.
yeah, it feels like they erred on the side of caution for this one.
Yeah, I think if you change any number on this in the text box up by 1 or on the mana cost down by 1, this card's great. But as is, I think it is like pretty bad.
Yeah, what's funny is like the things that this kills is either the Blade of the Sixth Pride or the rat tokens.
Yep.
And I mean, you don't really ever want to target a rat token with this. You
Yep.
still feel bad you're going down in resources.
Yep. So I'm inclined to throw this in trash. We on board with that?
Yeah.
All right. Next up is Frantic Firebolt. This is the other red spell I was talking about. 3 mana, 2 and a red, instant, deals X damage to target creature, where X is 2 plus the number of cards in your graveyard that are instants, sorceries, and or have adventure. I think that 100% of the time this card is better than the 4-drop.
I see what you mean by 95% of the time. Like you're gonna have one instant or sorcery in there.
Yeah. And even then, if you have one creature with adventure or an instant or a sorcery in the graveyard, which is going to be like 60% of your limited deck probably, it's 3 damage for 3 mana at instant, which is already such a better rate than 4 damage for 4 mana at sorcery.
60 seems high, but I'm seeing a lot of adventure creatures here.
Yeah.
So I think that this is going to be more often than not, it'll be 4 damage or higher. So
for 3 at instant, it already seems better.
Mhm.
I'm gonna put it draft chaff. I think is that fair? I don't think it's making the cut in cube.
Yeah,
and
it's only
probably
creature.
Not. Yeah, if it was a creature or a player, we'd be talking a whole different conversation.
Oh, geez. Talk about Serpentine Curve getting an upgrade.
Yeah, no kidding. But draft chaff, I think, for now. Next up is Gnawing Crescendo. This is an interesting card, and one of the cards I think is quite good. 3 mana, 2 and a red, says instant creature you control get +2/+0, and until end of turn, whenever a non-token creature you control dies this turn, create a 1/1 rat with this creature can't block. This is like a straight up Trumpet Blast upgrade, and it works in the sacrifice deck, and it works in the white-red deck because it gives you extra creatures to follow up. Like, this card is a cube slam dunk, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. This card is insane.
Yeah,
Like,
I just think
does...
I think this is a clean slam dunk for the cube.
Yeah, the only question is what card do you pull out? And
Trumpet Blast. We're still playing Trumpet Blast.
Why are you still playing Trumpet Blast?
Because
you have Gnawing Crescendo now.
Oh no! Sorry, it's not Trumpet Blast. I think we're playing like what is it? The +2/+0 and Changeling to dodge like Fiery Cannonade, which is hilarious.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we just get to play this now.
Yeah, absolutely. But this card is
this card is a cube slam dunk for sure.
Absolutely. Just so many ETB triggers.
Yeah.
The creature, if you have
imagine having
either of those red enchantments,
or having the black whenever a creature dies drain a life.
Yeah.
The vampire.
Absolutely. This card is insane. It's gonna push
or
red.
If you have any of the sacrifice outlets that don't cost any mana, you can just like trade in every blocked creature for a rat and grow your dude like huge.
Yeah.
Double sacrifice triggers off every creature, non-token creature you have in play is also huge. Yeah, no, I mean this card is a slam dunk for so many archetypes and all of them love it.
Yeah. This is one of the first pick cards.
Yeah.
That are in red. There's 3 of them I can think of.
Yeah.
In red.
I don't think this card goes above cube, but this is easily the best cube card in the set.
Oh yeah.
Like This is the card I am most excited about slamming into the cube from this set so far.
Yep.
All right, next up is Grabby Giant. Another adventure creature. We have That's Mine. For a red and a colorless at instant, you just create a treasure token. And then you get a 4/3 with reach and 2 mana plus a red, so 3 total, 2 in red. Sacrifice an artifact or land, draw a card for 4. Wow, we upgraded Divination and Hill Giant in this set.
Man, they are really,
We are
really pushing the commons. I love
feeling
it.
power creep at common, like, and pacifism. We straight up broke 3 common signposts from Eternal Magic in this set. That's crazy. I think this card also might be a cube card. The ability to trade in an artifact or a land to draw a card on a 4/3 is not nothing. And I mean, we're still running like the
The other guy that has bargain, I think, right?
well, the adventure card that says 1 mana, like discard, draw a card, and then it enters play. You can pay 3, discard, draw a card. I think this is better than that by a lot.
Yeah, 'cause this guy's got reach, and he's actually got a body.
4/3 that can attack. Yeah, no, I think this card is pretty good. I'm gonna call this a cube card for sure. I think. All right. Next up is Grand Ball Guest, 2 mana human peasant. Celebration. Oh, sorry. It is a 2/2, and with Celebration, it gets 1/1 and has Trample. Interesting. This isn't a cube card, so it's got to be below cube, right? Like,
it's draft chaff. Like the bears are good. Well, bears were good before this.
This is Bear Plus.
I don't know. Yeah.
All right, next up is Harried Spearguard. This has been nicknamed Monastery Swift Spirit Home. This is a 1/1 with haste for 1 red. It's a human soldier, and when it dies, you create a 1/1 rat creature. I think this is another one of those like signpost commons that's being pushed. I think this is a really interesting parallel to Doomed Traveler. But I think Doom Traveler is better. Now, does this make the cut in the cube? Maybe. We don't have that many 1-drops, and the 1-drops we do have aren't all that great besides Swift Spear, obviously. This might make a run at like an aggressive 1-drop for red. It is also a human for what that's, that's not a ton of tribal, but I don't know. I mean, this is 2 bodies on 1/1-drop. It has haste. It's kind of what the white-red deck wants, and it's a sacrifice card for the black-red deck. I don't hate this card. I'm down to put this at cube. This is another card to talk about for the cube, I think.
Possibly. I always like the 1-drop dudes that leave something behind.
Yeah. Now, whether or not this is better than like some of the 1-drops that leave 1/1 counters behind, I don't think so. But some of the 1/1s that leave bodies behind could definitely get cut out because they don't have haste here.
I think that actually the ones that leave counters behind are a little bit worse, unless.
I guess it depends on the color, because if they're in the
artifacts, I think
decks,
are better.
Yeah.
The white one I'm thinking of, I think.
Well, so this is not better than, what is it, the Grim Initiate, right? Because First Strike is better than haste.
Picking an army, yeah, okay.
But I think there might be a red card, so it's probably worth discussing. We'll have to look, but it's close.
Oh, he's definitely a really good way to make red get a little bit of a push.
He's definitely close. I don't know if he ends up making the cut, but we'll talk about it. Next up is Kindled Heroism. For 1 red instant, target creature gets +1/+0 and gains First Strike until end of turn, and then you scry 1. This is bad, right? This is like draft chaff at best.
Yeah.
All right, draft chaff at best. Next up is Merry Bards. Merry Bards is a 3/2 human bard for 3, 2 and a red. You have, when it enters the battlefield, you may pay 1. If you do, create a young hero roll attached to target creature. I I mean, we've talked about Young Hero enough already. I mean, there's a lot of Young Hero role creations, and I think Young Hero is probably one of the worst roles, besides maybe Wicked, just because it doesn't give the +1/+1 right away. But I do like that it has the ability to give more than +1/+1. This is draft chaff at best, right?
Yeah, you're not getting really up to 4 to have the aggressive opportunities
No.
outside of that.
Mm-mm.
So it's got to be draft,
Yeah.
if not trash.
All right. Next up is Minecart Daredevil. This is another adventure creature. So the first adventure is Ride the Rails for 1 and a red. It's an instant. Target creature gets +2/+1 until end of turn. And then for 3 mana, you get 4/2 Dwarf Knight with no text. So this is kind of a take on Rimrock Knight, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Rimrock Knight is substantially better than this, and we're not even running that in the cube. So I don't think this makes the cut.
No, this one on both sides gives 1 point of toughness.
Yes.
It also costs
And
1
it
more.
can
I
block,
don't know.
but it does cost 1 more on both halves.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't think you're paying a 3 mana for it too.
Yeah.
And then I don't think the
Especially when you
adventure
look
makes
at
too
like
much of a difference
the
either.
3-drops we are playing right now, like Renegade Freighter and the Minotaur that's like a 4/3 on your turn, but you can
Yeah.
madness it, stuff like that. I just don't think this is gonna make the cut on that. It's almost certainly
There's
playable
more words on it.
in limited though. I mean, this card's pretty good on both halves, and you're gonna play it in limited when you have it.
For sure. In limited, it's not going to be so aggressive, but it'll be trading up a lot.
Yeah. All right, next up is Ratcatcher Trainee. It's another adventure creature. So the first one is Pest Problem. Instant adventure for 2 and a red. It creates 2 black rat tokens that can't block. And when you cast the creature side, it is a 2 mana 2/1, and as long as it's your turn, it has first strike. This is a card that I'm interested in evaluating for the cube. First strike is proven to be very powerful, and this has, a quote unquote bad Krenkos command stapled onto it as a creature. This feels good enough to look at, I think.
I absolutely hate it. I hate 2 things about this. The fact that the pest problem costs 3.
Me too.
While making worse tokens.
Mm-hmm.
I
But it's
hate
an instant.
I hate the first strike on your turn clause
Mm-hmm.
only. It's like what WotC's doing with this card irks me a lot on both halves.
Sure, there's a lot of text, there's a lot of additive distraction, there's a lot of stuff going on in this card, but it has a lot of play in it. Like the 2/1/1 tokens, while they do cost 3 and they do make worse tokens than like Krenkos command already, it is an instant. So I mean, it's no raise the alarm, but like what is? And the 2-drop side is just Boros Initiate, right? Like it's just a 2/1 that has first strike on your turn. Like all of that that card already exists. It's just in white instead of red, and I think red does that better. So
yeah, no, it's a white-red card, that one. But this guy, I hate the templating of it.
Yeah.
And I hate that the worst Krenko costs more.
Sure. But I like that it's an instant. Yeah. I think this is probably discussable for the cube. It does a lot. Yeah. It has both sides of it are like reasonable, and the fact that it's 2 cards in 1, it gives a little bit of play.
Yeah.
I like that, unlike most of the adventure cards that have very clear cut cast the adventure, then cast the creature, you have to make a choice with this card. Do you want to run it out as a 2-drop, or do you want to hold it back to use the 3 mana to cast the spell and then like double 2-drop on turn 4? I like that you have a choice to make on the line that you open the game with this card, unlike every other adventure we've seen thus far, which is just very much brain dead, cast adventure, and then later tap out for creature,
Yeah, it's just something that bothers me is that you're talking about that kind of a play, because you don't know if that's correct, because this is an early game creature or early game effect. You don't know if it's correct until later on in the game.
Yes.
And it's going to be harder than at that time of when you cast it and you do a thing of knowing if that was correct or not.
Sure.
Of having the more instant feedback and being able to easily trace it to like, okay, well, I should have done this at this time.
Okay. So I'm inclined to say it's a cube card. I think there's something to talk about for cube.
There's a discussion there.
All right. Next up is Red Cap Thief. This is a 2/3 for 3. It's a goblin rogue. When it enters the battlefield, you create a treasure. This is as draft chaff as it gets.
Wait a minute. Where's my keywords?
Right.
Why is this only a 2/3? What the heck, Watsy?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, this is a 2/3 for 2, right? Because you're getting the mana back. And it is a 1-turn ramp to 5, so you go from 3 to 5.
I mean, at least it's not a tapped treasure token. Watsy.
I would have rather this be a 3/2 goblin, but it's fine. I think this is as draft chaff as it gets, though.
Yeah.
All right, next up is Skewer Slinger. This is a 2-mana Dwarf Knight for 1/3 with Reach. For a red and a colorless, you get when it blocks or becomes blocked by a creature, it deals 1 damage to that creature. This is an interesting effect.
I've always loved that effect, actually, since I saw it on the.
Funny enough, I think this might be sideboard playable in Pauper.
Because you can give it Death Touch.
Well, not necessarily Death Touch, but just the fact that this kills 2 toughness creatures. It has Reach, so it's good against fairies. It trades with a flipped Delver.
Oh, I didn't see the blocks or becomes blocked.
Yeah.
I thought it was always just the becomes blocked.
No.
I was blinded by the templating.
Nope, it does both.
That's good.
Yeah, I think this is a sideboard card. Strangely enough, as unassuming as this card looks, I think that it's pretty good.
That is, yeah, I like that. Plus, if you can give it any keyword.
It is. Yeah, if you can give it lifelink or something. Oof.
Oh, man.
All right. Next up is Torch the Tower. Winding down on red now. Just one more color to go. Torch the Tower is a 1 red instant with Bargain, and it says deal 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If this spell was Bargain, deal 3 damage to that permanent instead, and you scry 1. And if a permanent was dealt damage by Torch the Tower, would die this turn, exile it instead. Which is really interesting because it's one of the only ways that we've seen thus far to exile a planeswalker if you kill it.
Huh.
I don't know how relevant that is, but it's really interesting, the fact that we've never really seen that effect before. Because everything else says if a creature would die, exile it instead. This says if a permanent, and it deals damage specifically to a creature or a planeswalker, so it will exile both if it kills it.
What's the Scorching Dragonfire?
Really interesting.
Yeah, Scorching Dragonfire. Yeah, okay.
Now,
Yeah,
I don't think this is constructed playable, because it only deals damage to a creature, and planeswalkers don't exist at Pauper. It's no Lightning Bolt, so I don't think it's cube playable. But this is good in limited. I would play this in limited for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like it in limited. You're not playing this over Bolt.
No. Okay, next up, or Scred, or some of those other effects. Next up is Unruly Catapult. This is a 0/4 artifact creature construct for 3, 2 and a red. It has Defender, and it says tap, deal 1 damage to each opponent. When you cast an instant or sorcery spell, untap. While this is an artifact, and people are making the argument that artifacts matter, and that's a good thing, I make the opposite argument. This is an artifact. It's a creature that wants to live. Being an artifact is a hindrance. Too many things destroy artifacts too easily in Pauper. And just play Thermal Alchemist. Like, if you want this effect, just play Thermal Alchemist. You don't need 2 Thermal Alchemists. You already have Kessig Firebreather. And there's no reason to play an artifact version of Thermal Alchemist instead of Thermal Alchemist, especially because the artifact version dies to more stuff and costs more mana. This card's trash. I think this card's unplayable. And that's going to be a hot take, because a lot of people like this card.
Mm-hmm. Funny enough, when I saw this, the only thing that I thought that made it different from the 1/3
Mhm.
was just the toughness.
Mhm.
And then my eyes were brought up to the word artifact,
Yep.
and I pretty much came to the same conclusion.
All right,
Like
good.
you don't want this.
Nope. All right, next is Witch's Mark. This is the 2-mana sorcery for a red and a colorless. You may discard a card if you do draw 2 cards. And then, there's more. Create a Wicked Roll token attached to 1 target creature you control. This is more power creep. We have seen this exact card without additional text on it. But wasn't an instant? Was,
First time was sorcery.
okay. And then it got scaled up over time. So,
First time it cost double red too, I think.
yeah, Windfall.
I forget what it's called. But that's because it was bad.
Yeah. I don't think this card's getting played in the cube. But I think you probably play this in red and limited for sure. This is a good red draw spell in limited.
Mm-hmm.
All right, entering green. We're winding down with the set. This is our final color, and we only have 2 colorless cards to talk about. So far, a quick recap. We have a blue and 2 black cards in the best of the best build around category. We have 4 white cards in have potential, and we have 1 blue and 2 black cards in have potential. So far, no red cards in the top 10. Let's see if a green card makes the cut. So first off is Beanstalk Worm. This is a 5-mana 5/4 plant worm with reach, but it does have adventure, which is plant beans for a green and a colorless. You have a sorcery that says you may play an additional land this turn. Now this is explore without the card draw, so keep that in mind. I think this card is pretty good. I don't know if it's better than any of the ramp spells in the cube currently. So I don't know if it makes the cube cut, but I'm certainly playing this in limited if I have it in my pool.
Oh, absolutely. No, limited for sure. I wanted to say that this could make some sort of a home in Ponza, but it's not. You need the card
I don't
draw, I
think
think,
so.
on that.
Now,
mhm.
quickly, guys, before we continue, remember, if you are enjoying the content, and this is a long video, so if you've made it this far, thank you so much for sticking with us. Remember to hit that subscribe button down below. It really does help the channel, and we appreciate you guys for sticking it out. If you've made it this far, comment down below. Josh, pick a word. Any word. Go.
Croatoan.
Croatoan. Comment down below Croatoan if you made it to this point in the video. You're a legend. Anyway, moving on. Bestial Bloodline is next. Bestial Bloodline is up next. It is a green and a colorless enchantment aura. Enchant creature gets +2/+2, and you can pay 5 mana to return this from your graveyard to your hand.
Yay! Finally.
Rancor, this is not. But I don't think this card's not bad. I don't think it's gonna make it in the cube. There's no shot.
Absolutely not. I think this stays in draft.
Yeah, I think so too. But it is cool and cute, and I'll definitely play it if I'm in green. But to be fair, if any of these set reviews for the last like 5 sets are indication, you should stay out of green and limited. They're all bad. All right, next up is Brave the Wilds. This is a single green sorcery with bargain. If this spell was bargain, target land you control becomes a 3/3 elemental with haste that's still a land, and search your library for a basic land, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Then shuffle. I hate that this isn't rampant growth, but obviously that would be absolutely insane at 1 mana. So I understand. But animating a land in Pauper has consistently shown to be very, very powerful. Kenku Artificer is an insane magic card because it animates a bridge, which is indestructible, and that bridge gets to keep its land types. I don't like that this doesn't have flying. I think that's one of the things that makes the Kenku land so powerful. However, another way to animate bridges in Pauper is coming, and this is another permanent animation that can't be like, disenchanted like Wind Zendikon or something can. I think this card's really good, and I know that Josh will appreciate it when I say I think this card is probably a build around. He made a really strong case for like a green-blue land beats deck, and he called it like bridge beatdown or something. And I think we probably are going to have to respect that. I think this card's probably a build-around card.
You think that this will actually get Bridges into the conversation from being banned?
I think that if Kengu didn't, this won't. But we'll see. I think this card's at least has potential. But I'm inclined to say build around. What do you think?
Yeah, build around for sure.
All right.
This and Kenku they're in the same vein.
All right. Next up is Curse of the Werefox. 3-mana sorcery. Create a monster roll token attached to target creature you control. When you do that, creature fights up to 1 target creature. The monster roll says it gets +1/+1 and has trample. So this is very akin to Cartouche of Strength. I don't know if there's any reason to put this in over Cartouche of Strength. They do functionally exactly the same thing, right? So,
yeah, I think it's just, do you care more about permanents or do you care more about sorceries? Or more about enchantments, whichever deck you have the option for.
wait, but they both create enchantments.
Oh man, you're right.
Because you get the roll or you get the aura, right? So they're like exactly the same card.
They really are. Wow.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, to be fair, I guess Curse of the Werefox is technically better because it puts something in your graveyard as well.
Oh, that's fair. I'm not usually a fan of change for change's sake. So I don't know if this is going to be enough of a meaningful change to make the difference, but it is essentially a duplicate of a card we already have in the cube, so I suppose it is at very least a cube card.
By definition.
This is a functional reprint of Cartouche of Strength, so I suppose we'll have to at least look at the swap or playing 2 copies of the card. Next up is Ferocious Werefox. This is another adventure creature. It says 1 and a green instant. Change guard, or guard change, sorry. Create a monster roll to attach to target creature. Okay, so just give something +1/+1 and trample. And the creature half is 4 mana, 3 and a green for an elf fox warrior with trample. It's a 4/3, by the way. It is an instant speed pump that gives trample. That's nothing to fight on, and it is a 4-drop in green, which is a highly contested mana cost in green. But maybe it's time to look at like Witchstalker and some of the other like pseudo vanilla trample creatures in green, because I could see a strong argument for swapping Witchstalker for this. You don't get the food token, but you get to give something else a buff and trample before you play your trample creature. I think this card's a cube card, funny enough. I hate the artwork though. I think I'm sorry to the artist. I don't mean to be offensive, but I just really dislike the direction this one went.
Yeah, she definitely seems to be turning more into a wolf than a fox to me.
Well, I mean, they tried to like show that with the ears, but yeah, I just don't like the style they chose. I think that like later on when we look at like Leaping Ambush, I think that's like a way better depiction of that kind of like fairy tale style. And I just don't think this fits the art theme of the rest of the set. But alas, I think this is a cube card. Do we have any conflicting opinions on that one?
It's fine. I don't have any strong opinions about this card.
All right. Next up is Hamlet Glutton. This is a 6/6 for 7, 5 and 2 green for a giant with bargain. If it was bargained, it costs 2 less. It has trample, and when it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life. So this can be a 5-mana 6/6 trample, gain 3. No, this still dies to cast down, this still dies to snuff out, this dies to everything that can kill anything. I think this card's trash.
I'm not paying 5 mana, sacrificing something.
I think that's a lie. This is probably a limited powerhouse. This is a finisher in limited, but otherwise I think it's terrible.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not paying that much for this effect.
All right, next up is Hallow Scavenger. This is another adventure creature. So the first half is Bakery Raid. For 1 green at sorcery, you get to create a food token. And then the creature half is 3 mana. For 2 and a green, you get a 3/2 wolf, and you can pay 1 to sacrifice a food, and it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. But you can activate only once each turn.
At least it's not a sorcery.
That's
I think
true.
this is a cube card for sure.
Really? I don't think so at all.
I think it swings into anything, and like just for fear of activation, your opponent can't block it.
Okay, so this may be a benefit of just my knowledge of the cube, but currently there are only 3 things that make food.
There's the 4/4 or the 4/4 trample
4/4.
wolf. This and I want to say one of is there a witch? The black witch?
There's late to dinner and there's a black witch. There's
late to dinner, yeah.
which is not enough.
It doesn't need it. No, that's you only need this card.
You're saying you
on its
only
own.
need 1 food by itself for this card to be good? I disagree.
Yeah, swinging with a 5/4 the one time you need it versus always chipping in for 3. Don't get me wrong, more food would make this card better, but I
Okay,
don't think
alright.
it needs
I'll
it's already at that power level.
I'll bite. I'll put it in the cube area. I disagree, but we'll take a look at green and see what's there. Green 3-drops are notoriously lacking, so maybe there's room for this just because of its mana cost. Alright, next up is Leaping Ambush, which is a 1 green instant. Target creature gets +1/+3. It gains reach until end of turn, and you untap it.
Isn't this that one from
Yes.
Ikoria?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
pretty sure we've seen a functional reprint of this card. This is Draft Chaff. The untap is going to catch some people, but most of the time this is bad.
Yeah,
I do like that it's 1 green instead of 2 mana, like like some of the other versions of this card we've seen. But overall, I think this is a draft card, and it'll stay a draft card.
I agree.
All right, next up is Red Tooth Genealogist. This is an elf advisor for 3, 2 and a green, gets you a 2/3 elf, and when it enters the battlefield, you create a royal roll attached to another creature you control. Once again, royal is +1/+1 and ward 1. This card's bad. It's just not good enough.
Really? The
2/3 elf for 3 is not good enough, and royal roll is great, don't get me wrong, but it's still just a vanilla creature and a royal enchantment. Even if you put the royal roll on itself, like if you count this as a 3,
I was actually looking at that. It says another.
Yeah. If you could put this on itself, it would be great, but because it has to go on something else, I just don't like that this is a 2/3 vanilla for 3.
That needs something else.
That needs something else on the board and also runs the risk of them just killing your target and not 2-for-1ing you, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's just leaving you with the 2/3 on the board.
This feels like a good draft card, but I feel like that's about it.
It's definitely an exciting card, and then you think about it like that.
All right.
Make it a ruin stuff, Chad.
With realism. Next up is Return from the Wilds.
Critical thinking.
3 mana sorcery for 2 and a green. You choose 2. Search your library for a basic land card, put that onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Create a 1/1 white human creature token, or create a food token. Okay, so this is Rampant Growth for a basic, plus a 1/1. Or it's a 1/1 and a food, or it's a food and a ramp. I'm trying to think of like the other ramp spells in the cube. I just don't know if this is good enough.
I don't think you're ever making a human and a food though, right?
I mean, unless you absolutely need like a blocker and you're about to die. No. Or you're out of basic lands. I suppose that there is a argument for not having a basic to find. I don't know if this is good enough. I want this to be a cube card, but I don't think it is.
It's definitely not constructed. I think that you're playing this in draft.
Yeah. All right, next up is Root Rider Fawn. This is a 2 mana 1/3 Satyr Scout. For green and a colorless, you get tap to make a green, or 1 and tap to add 1 mana of any color. This is not going to make the cut in constructed by a long shot. This is not going to make the cut in Constructed by a long shot. I don't think it's a cube card, so this is draft chaff at its best, I think.
It's just a 2-mana play to get you up to 4.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, next up is Skybeast Tracker, which is one of the sickest arts in the set, by the way. This is a 4-mana, 2/4 giant archer. For 3 and a green, you get reach, and whenever you cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater, create a food token. While it is one of the sickest arts in the set, it is one of the worst cards in green. This feels like trash to me. It's a giant spider with upside, but I just don't think that's good enough anymore. I mean, we have cards like Penumbra Spider. How often are you, like, how many food tokens do you need to get to really make this worth it in your deck in Limited? And I feel like the answer is a lot. I'm just not excited to play this in Limited ever.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be played.
I think
not
I think
outside
it's
of
trash.
draft. He's just a giant spider.
Yeah, I don't even think it's a good giant spider is good in this set. Considering we have like the reach giant in red, and we've got a couple of like spells that give reach or fight, and yeah. And then we have Spider Food appropriately, which is 3-mana sorcery for 2 and a green. We destroy up to 1 target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying, and then you create a food token. We are getting dangerously close to a playable version of one of these cards, but we're not there yet. This card is not good. I think that in draft, this card might have some value just because rules are enchantments. But outside of that, I mean, this card is draft traff at best, right?
Yeah, I wanted it to be instant and cost 1 less.
Me too. All right, next up is Territorial Witchstalker. I was really hoping to get a Witchstalker follow-up. Unfortunately, this is not the one we wanted. This is a 2-mana wolf, so for 1 and a green, we get a Defender. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, Territorial Witchstalker gets 1/0 and can attack. Unfortunately, this is just not good. I don't think this is even good in Limited. I think this is in the trash bin.
Yeah, there's other defenders like this. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
They're not
next up
played.
we have Toadstool Advisor, which is a really interesting card. It's a 1/1 oof for 1 green. It has Ward 2 and 4 mana to put a 1/1 counter on it. 3 and a green puts a 1/1 counter on it. That's it. There's no once per turn. There's no sorcery speed only. This card's really interesting. I think this might be a cube card. We've had very close to this card in cube before. And I like that this has Ward. Really, you just need like 1/1 counter on it for it to be like above rate for the cube. It's a mana sink, which are always good in Limited. And with the Proliferate and the white-green deck that wants 1/1 counters on stuff, I think this card's just an all-around slam dunk for the cube.
I mean, I think I like this better than that 4-mana Hexproof Merfolk we were running for a while.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Next up is Troublemaker Oof, which is a card a lot of people are buzzing about. This is a 2/2 for 2, green and a colorless. It's an Oof, and it has Bargain. And when it enters the battlefield, if it was Bargain, you exile an artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. A lot of people are akinning this to Masked Vandal. I don't know which one's better, I'll be honest. This is the card that primarily, I think suffers from Bargain for me. I just really don't like the cost on this card. Like, for the love of God, why can't we just get a 2/2 that destroys an artifact or enchantment when it enters the battlefield? Like, come on, man.
Honestly, make it cost 3 mana. It'll be fine.
That's fine too. We have a 2/1 for 3 that does that at uncommon. Like, just give us a common that ETBs destroy an artifact or enchantment. We have a white one that exiles a creature, destroys an enchantment or gains 2 life, and it's a 1/3 for 2, and you get to pick one. Just For the love of God, give us a 2/2 in green that destroys an artifact or enchantment. It's not that hard. And I just don't like the fact that you have to jump through so many hoops to make this good. You can almost never play it on curve, and that means it's bad. Like, I just don't think you can. I don't think this card's good. I think a lot of people think this card's good, and it's not good. Now, that being said, it's still a sideboard card. I think that a lot of people are going to sideboard this over Masked Vandal, and if they build their deck around it so that they're able to trigger it, then props to them. I think Masked Vandal is largely going to be better.
Master Vandal, I think, is going to be actually easier to trigger, but Troublemaker Roof being in the same colors as Colony Garden is saying something.
Yep. So sideboard?
Yeah.
Sideboard it is. Next up, the last green card. Wow, the most playable card so far has been sideboard only from green. Oh, no. We had the Animate Land at Build Around. Yeah.
It just happened so long ago.
Yeah, right. So Verdant Outrider is the last green card. It is a Human Knight for 3, 2 and a green. It's a 4/2, and you can pay 2 mana, a green and a colorless, and it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less this turn. Green's 3-drop slots in the cube are very weak, but I don't think they're quite this weak. This is a draft chaff card for me.
I like how it eliminates the things that it would trade down to.
Oh,
as
me too.
blockers.
Don't get me wrong. I just don't think this card is what you need it to be in the cube. I think that it's probably a limited playable card, and it's probably quite good in limited.
Yeah, I think the large difference between Verdant Outrider and Hollow Scavenger is Verdant Outrider, you have to keep paying that. Whereas Hollow Scavenger, you're like, I don't have to pay anything. I'm just keep hitting you for 3.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the hidden cost of this Outrider, where I'm thinking he's going to stay in draft as well.
Yep. All right, and then last but not least, we have 2 colorless cards. First up is Candy Trail, which is a 1 mana artifact food clue. That's right, it is both.
Mm-hmm.
And when it enters the battlefield, it says Scry 2, and you can pay 2 mana, tap and sacrifice it. You gain 3 life and draw a card. I'll be honest, I don't think this card's very good.
Really?
I like that it has a lot of keywords. I like that it can do a lot, but in general, Scry 2 is a lot worse than Draw 1 card, and we already have several variants of like Lembas and Wellspring and those kind of cards that you bounce for Skyfisher and stuff like that, and the Scry 2 just really isn't going to compete with that market. I think that if you're playing foods like this, you want to be sacrificing them for Cauldron Familiar, which means the tap 2, draw a card and gain 3 life is largely ineffectual. You're just going to be playing this scrying 2 and then sacking it to bring a cat back. I think that in limited, this card is going to be a slam dunk. You're going to play any number of these that you open in limited, but I don't think it's cube playable, and I certainly don't think it's going to be more than that. Unless, like I said before with the other card, unless like Cauldron Familiar absolutely pops off like the Sweet Tooth Witch, and this card sees a ton of play because it's being run alongside the cat. So I could see a similar argument for putting this in has potential with the asterisk that says Cauldron Familiar needs to be an absolute powerhouse.
No, I see what you mean. Like, I love the card itself.
Me too. I think it's really cool, and I really want us to get. So we've gotten now a food clue, we've gotten a creature food, and I really want to see a creature clue. Yeah, I think it'd be really cool. But yeah, for this one, I think this is largely just draft chaff. I don't think you're gonna play this outside of that, but I think you're gonna play as many of these in limited as you get. This card is quite good in limited.
That's fair. Yeah, this does have limited effect of like if you bounce it, like you play it one turn, bounce it the next, play it again.
Yep.
In that same turn, like you're just overlapping the scry at that point.
Yep.
And I would definitely just feel better drawing 2 cards.
Yeah,
and
in limited, I mean, 3 mana to scry 2, draw a card, gain 3 life is not nothing, right? I'll take that in limited all day, but I just don't think you can play this outside of that. And then the very last card of the set for Pauper to round it out is Scarecrow Guide. This is a 2-mana artifact creature Scarecrow. It is a 2/1 with reach, and you can pay 1 mana to add 1 mana of any color. And that's it. That's all the card says. I'm lying, of course. It says activate only once each turn. Why? Why does this say once each turn, Josh? I don't understand.
Because I've been looking for a card that doesn't say only once each turn. And why? Why would they give it to us now?
They literally gave us Energy Refractor like 2 sets ago.
Yeah, but it costs 2.
Sure, but like
that doesn't give me infinite colored mana with Ashnod's Altar. It doesn't, and I need the colored mana.
I mean, it does if you run Energy Refractor and Orochi Leaf Color.
Orochi Leaf Color turns green into anything.
Yeah, so you can use Energy Refractor to make green mana.
No, I specifically need it to be 1 mana to activate that effect. 1 colorless mana. And
yeah, that's a problem for you then.
Yeah, it's a me problem for sure. And
this card's trash.
This is WotC not liking.
This card is absolute trash.
I think it'd be better if it had flying.
Sure, yeah, probably. I mean, we had Ornithopter of Paradise, and that was close, right?
Yeah, it's close.
All right, guys. So this is your finalized list of every card in Wilds of Eldraine. At the build around, we have. All right, at the build around level, we have Snare Master Sprite. We have Hopeless Nightmare. We have Warehouse Tabby. And we have Brave the Wilds. And those are your top 4 cards of the set. To round out the top 10, including the Has Potential section, we also have Cooped Up. What else do we have after Cooped Up? We also have Hopeful Vigil. We have Slumbering Keepguard. We have Stockpiling Celebrant. We have Mocking Sprite. We have Candy Grapple. And we have Sweet Tooth Witch. So that is our top, 11 cards of the set, it looks like. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 white cards, 2 blue cards, 3 black cards, 4 black cards, and a green card. No red in the top cards of the set this time around, but green finally gets a playable after 4 sets of dryness. So that's always exciting to see. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us. Really, really long video, but fun to go over every single card like we have in the past to give you a comprehensive Pauper set review. Stay tuned because coming soon is going to be our deep dive discussion of the best cards in the set and what you can expect from them, where you can try to play them, and cards we're excited to line them up with. Maybe some deck ideas and some brewing discussion coming in the future. But for right now, guys, that is all for this video. Thank you so much for sticking toward the end. Don't forget to comment the secret word down in the bottom, and if you skipped to the end, you'll have to find that. I'm not going to say it again. Thank you so much, Josh, for hanging out. Appreciate you. Do you have any closing words for the people out there?
Yeah, the secret word is